Fingertips above the water, you watch me drown. You could have saved me, but you let me down, yeah.
First off, man, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. I really appreciate being included, and I got a chance to look at your register of all the folks that have been out here, and I really thank you for having me.
Well, it means the world to me, and I want to just cover a bunch of stuff with you if you can today here. And
you want to let it rip?
I want to let it rip. I want to test your memory.
We can do that.
Boy, there's so many avenues I can go, but can we first talk about your latest album, Notorious?
Notorious, yeah.
Yeah. So talk about a little bit
the
about
the first thing I want to say about the Notorious record is Ricky Granati called me for something. I don't know what the hell he called me for, but he said he left him. I don't have a cell phone. I've never owned a cell phone.
I experienced that, yes.
Yeah, I have no cell phone. I don't want nothing to do with that. But he called and left the phone on the and left a message on the phone that I bought in 1998. And that's a still phone. That's a phone I still use. And he said, and he left a message. And he said, "Hey, Notorious," and that's what he called me. And as soon as I heard that, I went, "That's the name of this record." And I'd been working on the record for a couple years. And so I got the name of the record from Ricky, and just that name, Notorious, really worked for me because, you know, of my position in the city and my position in rock and roll in general and in life. You know, I have that type of air about me, who I am and who I've been. And I kind of like that, you know, I'm kind of proud of that.
Well, I mentioned to you off air. I'll put it right here. I had Billy Price on here. We were just chatting as the show was ending, and I said I was going to reach out to you, and he said that you were the most authentic Pittsburgh rock and roll musician ever. So that was pretty high praise.
Fantastic is
pretty
that,
high praise.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, I saw Billy the first time in 1973 when they, or 73 or 74 when the Rhythm Kings first came to Pittsburgh. I saw him playing in the street with the Rhythm Kings in Shadyside, right out in front of Fox Cafe. And they were playing soul music. And it just snapped my girdle, you know. I was just like, man, these guys, they were all young cats. We're all like the same age, you know?
Yeah.
But they were like they were digging into soul music. They had a sax player, Chris Patterini, who became an attorney in time.
And I think he played with Gary Boloma for a period of time.
Still does. Or Gary's band.
Yes.
Now he plays with the Jaggers. But they had this other guy, John Hoog, who played baritone sax. And Lazy Henry. And it was just a really... what they were doing was bringing soul music to white people.
Yeah.
And also they were having salt and pepper audiences. It was the first, like for a suburban guy like me, I didn't see races mix as I grew up. But when I started hanging out with the Kings, I saw that happen, and I saw how natural it was and how normal it was and how there wasn't no big thing.
Yeah.
You know, but I learned a lot about, and you know, and I met, you know, Roy Buchanan, you know, from that. I mean, I didn't really know Roy, or I met him, but I didn't know him. But I got to see him, and it was just a really cool time in Pittsburgh music because so many people, so many innocents were being turned on to the depth of how deep music can be and how soulful. And I really appreciated that. We used to follow them, and I used to always want Billy to hire me to play guitar, but I think he knew. I think Billy knew, you know. And plus, I wasn't all that great of a guitar player. You know, it took me a long time to develop as a guitar player. But anyway, let's talk about Notorious.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start there, and then we'll swing all the way back around.
Okay.
Yeah.
I caught it. I own a studio, but I don't have any technological abilities whatsoever. I don't even know how to turn my studio on. So I started working with a drummer friend of mine who was playing in a band out of West Virginia called the Brett Kane Band, which is a phenomenal act that I produced a record for it, and I was almost finished with another record. I took him up to New York and almost got him signed to CBS, and was real excited about really another soulful act.
Sure.
Monstrous. You know, I had him for 4 years. And I beat the hell out of them kids. I mean, I beat the hell out of them, tortured them. But they knew. They were on the jam band circuit. And my any one of them, you ask them, they'll say, after working with me, they says, no matter what show they were on, they knew. When they got there, they had a quiet confidence because they knew they were trained to go out and steal every show they ever played. And that's what they did. I taught them that. But anyway, this guy, his name's Bryce Foster, and he was their drummer, and we became very close friends and stayed tight. And he started getting into engineering a little bit and learning how to do things and working on drums. And, you know, a lot of people don't like to work in a studio.
Right.
Studio work is not easy work, not for normal people. and a lot of people record shit, but that don't mean they should be there and they should be cutting it. You know, it's a very unique part of life. It's almost like entertaining. They're both totally different things, but they're both. A lot of people get on stage that shouldn't be there, and a lot of people cut that shouldn't be cutting. You know, it's a unique thing. And but anyway, I trained this kid, and then we started working together. And I said, let's try and cut some shit. And we cut a mess of songs, and then we started building. It took us a few years to get together because he's living in Nashville now. So he'd come up and we'd work together, and that's how Notorious came about. And it was more of a collection of tunes that hadn't been cut. And like the first song on it, I forget what the hell the name of it is, but it was a song I wrote. I wrote it in honor of the era of when Bon Jovi first came out. Good friends with those guys.
Yeah.
And
we'll
their
talk about
first,
that.
when they hit the scene, that what they were doing musically was really hit a vein of somewhere between pop music and rock and roll that was real true, and it really rung throughout America. So I wrote the first song is a tribute to that. You know, it's just my version of that. And then I wrote another song on it called. What the hell was that? The last song on it, I forget what the name of it is. I can't remember the name of the songs.
That's all right.
I didn't bring my bag, but I have it here. But it was a song about my place in Pittsburgh rock and roll, which hasn't been good, you know, and I haven't been embraced by the radio and some of the artists that the radio has embraced.
Well, you were quoted in one interview a couple of years ago saying that's giving you a little bit of an edge. And there was one particular gig, I think in 1990 at the Star Lake Amphitheater. There was a Pittsburgh musicians.
That was 98.
Was 98?
Yes, that was 1990.
What happened there?
What happened? Well, it's all part of that story.
Okay.
And it relates to the Evil Empire, which is the radio station that plays rock music in Pittsburgh. I don't like to say their name.
Right on.
And what happened is somehow I have a personality, and I have steam, you know, and I have people that come to see what I do and who I am, and are plugged into me. Right on. And they had a show where they were going to have Bruce Springsteen play with the House Rockers, at Fat City. So those guys didn't have enough material to play a real night, so they needed to put a band on there. Okay. And the Evil Empire already wasn't treating me right. And I knew that. Okay. But they called me and put me on the show anyway, because who else are you going to get on that ain't going to get booed off the stage? Got it. So they had to put me on it. So I went on with a drummer. My drummer, Whitey Cooper, had been with me for many years. Yeah. And I had picked up a bass player about 2 weeks before. He wasn't even a bass player, played guitar. I taught him how to play bass in 2 weeks. We went down there and opened that show. Okay. And crushed. Right. And I mean crushed. We did 2 nights in a row and just stormtrooped that place. And in the middle of my set, I recited a poem. And the poem was, I tip my hat to Joe and Bruce, but now it's time to turn the monkey loose. If you like what you hear, it's time to realize. Tell Pittsburgh Radio to open their eyes. Because I was here when it started, and I'll die on this stage. Pittsburgh rock and roll, I wrote my own page. So pick up your phones and tell the powers that be, don't be afraid of a man like me, because pound for pound, round for round, even tonight, I'm the baddest man in this town. And I recited that poem both nights. Wow. And one of the guys at the Evil Empire, I call him the liver lip troll. He hated me for that and blackballed me. Yeah. And started telling people that whenever they would do shows, you know, and ask for me, they would tell the promoters, we don't work with him. He's a bad person.
They'd come out and just say that.
They'd say my name. And because people would say, hey, we want so-and-so, we want so-and-so, we want Norman. And he'd say, we don't work with him.
Wow. To be blackballed from a radio station almost seems criminal, you know? Because because radio is bigger than one entity. You know what I mean?
Truly.
I think so.
Truly.
I mean, the spirit of radio.
And hence the anger inside of me for all these years.
No shit.
So anyway, this goes on all this time. Okay. And then in 1998, the Evil Empire's putting on this show at Star Lake.
Got it.
With all the Pittsburgh people, and I'm not included. So people start writing.
How can that be though? That's the most egregious. That seems egregious to me.
And it's still not resolved. I'm still not allowed to be on any of their shows. I've never been on their station since 1993.
Haven't they changed hands a couple times since then?
I think but the liver lip troll is still there.
Yeah, right on.
And here's the kicker to it all: the minions, the music people that they embrace, and they put their loving arms around, and they stuff their music down people's throats. Never stood up for me.
Wow.
Never stood.
Wow.
When they did that show in 1998, they had all the other, Brian, I think his name's Brian O'Neill, wrote a big article about it.
Journalist, Pittsburgh, Post-Gazette, or Journalist, right.
So, and everybody started writing, and it became a thing.
Yeah.
And so they put the show on anyway. Glenn Pavone opened the show. Glenn Pavone walked on stage wearing a Norman Nardini t-shirt.
Yeah, beautiful. Yep.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Glenn Pavone, the best musician of them all by far. Not just the total world class gentleman, simple person. He stood up for me and showed them how. But none of them have done that in all these. Now I think it's 2019. It's almost 2020, isn't it?
Yep.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close.
And all this time they have not stood up for me. And I can't say names, but I fought to help a few of those acts even get in the business and even get in that position.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story of.
Do you know where it started from? Can you pinpoint where the discourse happened?
Well, put it like here's the next part of the story.
Okay.
In 2003, I got a phone call from one of DVE's minions.
Okay.
I'm a musician. And he said to me, "Hey, we're doing a show at somewhere out in South Park or something, and we want you to be on the show." And I said, "What?" He says, "We want you to be on the show." I says, "I don't believe that." And he says, "Well, the guy, the liver lip troll told me that to call you and invite you to be on the show." I says, "Look," I says, "give me the liver lip troll's phone number. I want to talk to him personally because I don't want to be anywhere I'm not invited."
Right. Yeah.
So I called him up and I says to him, "What up, man?" I says, "Your boy called me, wants me to be on this show." And I says, "And I know I've been personally blackballed by you personally. People have told me your name."
So you told him.
I said straight to it. You know what he said to me? He said, "I'm so glad you called." He says, "It gives me the opportunity to apologize to you for what I've done." He says, "I saw you play that show with the House Rockers down at Fat City and Bruce, and then you did that poem." And he says that hit me the wrong way, and I am responsible.
So he admitted it.
Totally admitted it, and then he apologized to me. And I told my old lady, I says, "You won't believe what happened." I says, "The liver lip troll." I says, "He apologized to me," and my old lady said, she said, "Don't trust it."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went out and I did
Women
that.
know.
I was like, I says, "Well, I can't believe you'd say that." I says, "He apologized."
Right.
So I went out and did the show. And from the day I've done that show, not once have I been contacted or ever been allowed to be on a show again. Not one time has one of my songs been played on the show. So he apologized to me.
Wow.
But still has continued to blackball me all this time. That's the real story.
Wow.
And here we sit. And the crazy thing is, somebody told me that the reason they invited me on the show was because there was, like, I don't like to use the word witch hunt, but that's the word that was used to me.
Okay.
And they said that there was a witch hunt in the media for Clear Channel and who they are and their dirty activities.
Uh-huh.
And so what happened is somebody from the Trib, I can't remember who it was, called me and said, "Hey, we want to interview," and this is the time of this show.
Right.
I think it was like 2 weeks after the show happened.
Okay.
And they says, "Yeah, we want to interview and we want to talk to you, about Clear Channel." I says, "Okay." And they says, "Well, we hear there's a unique story that goes on between you and those guys."
Interesting.
And you know what I said? I said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
You took the high road.
Well, he had apologized.
Yeah, I get it. And you reciprocated.
So I thought, maybe, this is cool.
Yeah.
And so I refused, and the guy says, well, we know what's going on, we know what's happened, and this is your opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I says, I really don't have anything to say. I says, I'm really just trying to move forward, and I don't know nothing about these stories.
Okay.
And that was the end of that. And then now we're in 2019, and not once have they called me, used me, played a song, acknowledged that I exist.
Wow.
And not once have their minions stood up for me.
Wow.
And so that's one reason, and that's Here I Stand. And in my song, it says, now you can all kiss my ass. And if you had any class, someone would recall my name. Something in this picture's missing. There's a man you all been dissing. Now it's your time, but there ain't no denying. I broke the horse you're riding. And that's the name of the song, is The Horse You're Riding. That's what all that led up to.
Yep.
But that's the last song on the album, and that's me telling those guys, here's what I think about you guys. For the musicians, it'd be like, someone on the Pirates, if somebody had been dissing Willie Stargell or whoever,
right,
or Smokey Burgess or a Steeler, Mike Webster, somebody somebody that was an integral part of the system that corporate had shown disrespect to.
Really, just one person is in control of the whole thing, right?
Well, I know the guy that told me he was responsible for it, and I know that his boss at one time was I was told was also involved in it, but that guy hasn't been in power in a while. So it just tells me how weak, and frail, and how far from real music. I just heard recently, like in the past couple of years, that some people in our town, paid somebody in Austin, Texas to advise Pittsburgh how to be a music city. And I just started.
I'm surprised.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
I just laughed so hard. I just thought, they spent money to have someone tell them how to be a music city? And it just blew my mind that, and this is the city I live. We're a sports town.
Right.
And I happen to be here and happen to love it here. And but that's the story of what's happened to me in the music business here in town.
Where it's so frustrating, and I've seen it. I've absolutely seen it with this station. I've seen there's a very selective artists in town they embrace, as opposed to the whole scene, right?
It's a private club.
It is a private club. Whereas I think the country stations on this town, which I know is probably not on your radar, but I listen to a little country music, and I also have a very good friend who's been a longtime DJ on Froggy Radio.
Okay.
That station makes it a point to bring in local artists, and they've cultivated that relationship with the town, and that's how they grew against their competitors, was that they embraced the town's music. I mean, how can you not, right? I mean, how can you not?
Well, here's something that I'm thinking. In the way society's going today, and the way the radio business is going today,
we'll talk about that.
It's becoming less and less an option to listen to commercial radio,
right, for
the way the culture is.
Right.
And to me, the one thing that radio can offer, is the community. Its relationship with the community gives radio a chance to be special and to have an importance and to give people a chance to listen. But the evil empire has gotten further away from that, and they just have their little list of people that they have decided have significance.
Okay.
And you take me, who could teach all them guys. I could teach them all how to write better songs. I could teach them all how to play their instruments better. I could teach them all how to record better. I could teach them how to entertain.
Absolutely.
And I am a scourge. And it hurts. In my position, at one time, I embraced teaching others and taking young people and producing recordings for other people. But after a while, I just stopped doing it. For a couple reasons. One reason, because after doing it, I realized that most people don't think they want to get into this business, but they really don't. And the other thing is, I started realizing if I see a kid that I like and I start teaching them, and then the powers find out that they're working with me, it's a curse on them.
Yeah, they're blackballed.
Yeah, and it's just like, and here I sit in this town, in this business, and what do you do?
what always puzzled me about that particular station was their essence of community, embracing Pittsburgh, was always rooted in the fucking sports. And the music, which is they are a music station, of the local music was always a sidebar, and selectively, very selectively at that. But they didn't have the same passion to embrace local music as they did the sports. I mean, to me, that was just a natural. The whole thing could have been tied up in a nice bow, and there could have been a lot of like cohesion between everything. But that was always the sidebar. Like,
I think that,
to me, it seems that way.
And, since they got involved with the big sports dogs, that's carried the ball in the station. But at one time, it wasn't that way.
Right.
So, that they did that as they started falling in the ratings. And,
so it was a money thing.
As things started changing. And I guess, it's a great thing to be in that type of relationship. But the way they've handled the music thing and the way they've handled me is just overwhelming to me. And it's really left a mark on me in the way I have to approach things and the way how I am in town. People come up to me and say, "Hey, do you know these guys? Maybe you could get them to do me a favor." And I want to say, "Do you a favor?" And it's really weird, because. And I've, like I say, I've worked with some of those guys, and wasn't happy with it. Isn't just the station.
Yeah.
To me, it's become. I call them their minions. The musicians that they embrace. I just look at them and I want to fist fight them.
Yeah.
I want to get them on stage and kick their asses and send them back to their mothers and say,
But don't you think in some weird way that this is, while it's troubling and certainly not equitable on your behalf for you, it is kind of like it feeds into the legend of who you are. And it takes a personality like yours to be successful in that environment. They have not stopped you. The lack of airplay or embracing or even opportunities show-wise, endorsing is a funny word, but I mean getting behind one of your shows.
It's true. Endorsing is the word you use.
It's not stopped you from being you and being successful.
What it's done is given me a chance to prove my heart.
Which you're made up for that. Your makeup as a human being is
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that that I'm me, and I'm lucky that I'm this way. I'm this way whether they would have done that or not.
That's Norm Nardini.
It's that fighting instinct, and it's the carrying the ball. I want to give me the ball. Let me. I'm a very single-minded person. I don't have anything.
That's the quotes.
I'm a very single-minded person. I don't do other things.
I love it.
I'm not. I am a huge sports fan. I'm a Steeler fan like crazy. I'm a Pirates fan. I'm a Pens fan, and but I'm not. I don't do things, I don't do anything but this. I've been with the same woman 44 years.
God bless you.
We never had children.
Right.
She's a very independent hillbilly woman, and I'm a very independent guy. So we have this great relationship where I can and have lived the life that I've wanted to live, which is a life of constant study, a life of constant growth. And to this day, I'm that guy. I'm so lucky to be this old. I'll be 70 years old next year.
God bless you.
I was born in 1950.
You don't look it, pal.
Sometimes my bones feel it sometimes, but I wake up and I go to work all day, every day, 7 days a week.
Well, you're quoted as saying you've never taken a vacation.
I don't.
That's a crazy statement.
And when I take my old lady to West Virginia to the mines, I don't not work.
I'm sure you do work there.
I work while I'm there.
I'm sure you do work there.
I take, I study constantly, and it's a great life, a life of study and a life of growth is extremely rewarding. And it never stops giving. Young people say they want to get into music, and I used to really tune into that when someone said it. Now it's happened so many times.
Yeah.
Everybody wants this and wants that, but nobody wants it like I want it.
And that's the attitude that probably permeated and carried you through, right?
I think so. I think that my it's real. I'm real. It's
authentic.
and it's
authentic, like Billy Price said, authentic. That's
I don't know that authentic. I just know that I'm a work mule, and I just love the opportunity to wake up and work every day. When I would work with bands, I told you that Brett Kane band. I had him for 4 years.
Wow.
And at the time, I didn't have a penny in my pocket. I am a dime. But I owned a building, and I used to have a studio in it, but I didn't have no gear, and I didn't have no heat, and I didn't have no plumbing.
The best way to record, right?
So I had him shitting in a bucket. I had him shitting in a bucket and pissing in a bucket, and then
That's great.
And I didn't have no heat. I'd rehearse them all through the winter, and I would rehearse 6 and 7 hours at a clip.
Wow.
And I would say to these kids, they'd be complaining about how cold it would be in there, and I'd say, "Hey," I says, "listen to me, you little pricks." I says, "I offer you guys a germ-free environment." I says, "There's no germs living in this room. There's no way you're going to get sick. You just buckle down and we'll play that again and listen to me when I tell you." And that's how. And I trained them. First they come to me, and they had been to another guy in town that records people.
Right.
And they didn't seem to think he was fit for them. And they went to this guy that was handling them, and they says, "Was there anybody else?" And this guy told him, he says, "There's this crazy guy." And these are all kids from West Virginia. They're young guys. He says, "There's this crazy guy." And they says, "Yeah, what's he like?" He says, "I don't know if you're ready for him."
I got this quote here. It's great. It says, "I was born with a nasty personality and a single-mindedness."
That's real.
Yeah. That's a great quote.
I mean, I love competing. I love to get on stage, and I love.
So you love being on a multiple bill gig. Then you love that. You love the energy of going in there and taking the prisoners and kicking their ass
every time.
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah,
but because I haven't been allowed.
In this town, yeah. Recently,
I've developed this new thing, and now my thing is I get on stage. Last Friday night, I got on stage. I played for 4 hours straight.
Holy smokes! That's a marathon.
I played for 4 hours straight, and then I took a break, and I started talking to my buddy, and I says, "I better get back up." He says, "Dude, you just played for 4 hours." I said, "No, I didn't." He says, look, here's what time you played. He says, "You just played 4 hours straight." And I was like, "Damn." I said, "I didn't even know." I says, "But I better get back up." I got up and played another hour.
Wow.
Because
so you're a bar owner's dream, then. Club owner's dream.
I can be. I mean, I
can be.
I think I am. But and one thing I've learned, and this is what makes me separates me from everybody else, is in my mind, what I have to do when I say have a nasty personality. What I mean by that is here's how I look at it. Anybody can go into a bar and play songs that people know and like, and expect to get a little applause at the end of it.
Yeah.
Big fucking deal.
Right.
What I do is I write the songs, and then I go play them for people that never heard them before, and trick them into liking them. Trick them into listening to the words. Trick them into the intensity of the solos. Trick them into the bullshit in between the songs, and take that room over with something totally unique and unsupported. You know, when the radio plays your songs, they're going to clap at the end of it.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and the media is offering you as something that is a viable option, that something is a bona fide option. But I don't have that.
Yeah.
Really never did much, you know. And so what I have to do is I have to be real. I actually have to be great. And that's what I demand of myself. And that's what I demand of when you play with me, or if I'm working with you. You know, I demand that you be better than everybody else. I don't think being good is an option. We ain't being good. You want to be good? Go to somebody else. You want to be great. You want to be outstanding. You want to find things inside you that you didn't know were there. You come to me. And that's what I've done to myself.
Right.
You know, when I was a kid, when I got in the business, I worked at a studio, and I was literally the worst musician there. I was like the janitor, and I would write lead sheets and, you know, string charts and horn charts and crap like that. That's what they gave me.
Right.
And I worked with the talented guys. Pete Hewlett, Bubs McKay, Frank Zori, Warren King. These guys were the talented guys. I worked with them, and I started doing their arrangements, and that's how I got in the business. But I would arrange their talents. They had the talent. I had the vision.
Right. Right.
And I had also had it
Composing. You're putting it all together.
I'm an arranger. I studied
arranger,
music.
yeah.
I went to music school.
Right.
But
we'll
I
talk about that too.
But I didn't talk about that.
Okay.
Because it didn't mean shit to nobody.
Yeah, absolutely, I get it.
Because the talented guys didn't go to music school.
Right.
Glenn Pavone, he came later. They played because it was inside them.
Right.
Me, I rubbed up against all them guys. And every one of them I stole a little bit.
Got it.
And it kept growing and growing and growing. And to this day, I'm still rubbing up against old people and new people and just constantly squeezing everything I can out of the little bit of talent that I have. And I've turned myself into a pretty competitive force. But I never saw me as the lead singer. I never saw me as the lead guitar player. I never saw me as the main writer. I grew into those things simply because everybody else that I was working with would only work so hard and would only offer so much and only wanted to go so deep. I would take what they did and want more.
Got it.
And they'd be like, well, I'm like, yeah, but we need, because I'm constantly in search of the growth, constantly in search of greatness, and I need to do it every day.
Yeah.
I need that. I could have 10 bands and write all their music and produce all their music and arrange it all. And that's if I had been embraced and shown any respect whatsoever, that's how it would have worked out.
Okay.
In my vision of it all. And I wouldn't be the singer and the star of the show.
Right.
I would just be the that's how I wanted it.
That's interesting.
Most people don't see that, they don't know. And I think the reason
because you are such a force, like you yourself, your name, and obviously you're the reason people were there. You are the star of your show, so it's hard for anyone to look at that and say that really wasn't the path you were seeking.
Well, that's
initially.
how I got there.
Interesting.
That's how I got there, and that's how I'll stay there. Because I have such respect for true talent, and I do have true talent. Mm-hmm. And my true talents are not guitar playing, not singing, and I found that maybe I do have a true talent for songwriting, but it's taken me 30 years before I really started saying things that were important and writing movies. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But my true talents are arranging and showboating.
Yeah, entertainment, baby.
Entertainment. I mean, that's easy for me.
That's
the
first
thing. Get over here.
That's the first thing that comes to me when I think of one of your shows. I'm there to be engaged, taken to church, entertained, and you're so interactive. That's the thing. You're interactive with any audience, big, small. I've seen it all with you. It's so.
But when I was a kid,
let's go there. Cheswick.
That's
that
where
right?
I went to grade school. Yeah.
And if I read your words prior, you became a musician, or you noticed music really early, like at 6 or 7 years old initially.
Yeah, I started playing accordion
was the thing.
when I was 6 years old.
Yeah, and I think your first paid gig, I think, was in a garage on your hometown street. Were you living?
Right.
Is that right? Is that right?
Well, I wasn't in Cheswick by then. We had moved to Wilkins Township, and I still walk past that garage every day with my goddamn Chihuahua.
Somehow that's fitting. You have a Chihuahua.
I shouldn't admit it that I have. Yeah,
it's fitting though. It's fitting.
It is now. I see it, but I saw them for years. We had pit bulls.
Okay, I see that too.
And that's how I'd like to be seen. But we got too old to handle them.
Sure,
and it's a lot of responsibility.
Sure.
But now we have a Chihuahua, and
just the opposite.
Exactly. But when I brought it home, I didn't even like that damn dog. I got it from a dope dealer in Swissville. He was out in the street there. That's no bullshit. He was standing by my studio, and I come out just to get some clean air, and he was standing there on his cell phone. He had this little Chihuahua on a chain. I walked past. I says, "Hey, it's a nice looking dog." He says, "You want her?" First thing he said. I'm like, I don't know. And he says, "It's destiny. She loves you." And I just walked in front of him, and I says, "She loves me?" And he goes, "She's not barking at you. She barks at everything that moves, and she's not barking at you. Please take her. She loves you. It's destiny. You should have her." And at the time, my wife's mother...
dope dealer with a soul.
It was destiny. But my wife's mother was sick, and she was on her way out.
Okay.
And my wife was taking her at the time, taking care of her. And I knew she needed a boost.
Got it.
And I didn't like this dog. I didn't. But he gave me a pink cage and a pink 224.
Oh, that's cute.
And I brought her home. And then 2-3 weeks, a month later, I started falling in love with her.
Of course.
She broke me down like a shotgun.
Of course. All right, so when you had your first band, I'm assuming, were you playing bass or guitar? Because we'll get into the Diamond Reo, you played bass. So did you start on guitar?
I started on accordion.
Right, but I mean, when you formed a band.
My first band that I was in, I played a Farfisa organ.
Okay.
And a little bit of Kent and a little bit of rhythm guitar.
Okay.
And that's how I started playing. I was 14.
Okay. What were you covering back then? You remember?
Same thing everybody else was. The Stones, Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
The guitar, the guitar instrumentals like the French version stuff, Pipeline and those kinds of things. You know, like that real early innocent rock and roll.
Okay.
And I stayed with that, you know, and then when I got into high school, we started doing like some Hendrix, and we found soul music, you know.
A great era, huh, for music.
It really was. You know, we found Sam and Dave, and started. And then years later, I got to hang out with Cropper and all them guys, you know, from Stax. And you know, when I was 18 years old, I think it was since 1968, Sly and the Family Stone come out, and their first album, Dance to the Music, revolutionary music, really was. It was changing the world. Black guys. Or interracial band, you know, black guys playing rock music.
It's beautiful.
That black people could still get with, you know what I mean? Sure. Larry Graham on bass, the innovator, genius, and they had a gig booked in Pittsburgh, and I got a phone call. A guy says Sly's coming in, and no one even knew who they were at the time. And he says he needs to rent an organ. At the time, I had a Hammond B3 organ, so I rented him my organ. Wow, and. I got to hang out with him for a weekend. Wow. But a month before that, Billy Preston, the ultimate Billy Preston, who ended up playing in the Beatles, playing in the Stones, played on, I guess it was Shindig or one of them. I think it was Shindig, when he was a little kid. He played with Nat King Cole when he was 5 and 6 years old. He had come to town and he needed to rent an organ. And I rented him my organ, and I hung out with Billy Preston. Wow. And while I was hanging out with Billy Preston, he saw a poster that Sly was coming. This is 1968. And he sees this poster and he goes... He says, you see that? I says, Sly. I says, man, we got his album. I says, we're studying that songs. We're learning all that crap, Dance to the Music. Right. He says, let me tell you something. He says, I taught Sly everything he knows. And I said, really? He says, yeah, but I didn't teach him everything I know. Billy Preston said that. And he gave me this big gap-toothed smile. I'll never forget it. And I was so lucky to, you know, at that time I got to play with a mess of people, you know. I was backing up like the Detroit Emeralds and all these like soul bands that were coming to town, you know. I remember I was working for a promoter. One time he hired me to pretend I was in the Sonics. People. The Cherry People. Is that right? And the Sonics, yeah. Okay. He hired me to...
You pretended.
These other guys... Who in the hell thinks that are Cherry People? But he hired me and other guys I didn't know to pretend I was in those bands. Oh, and I would play organ or guitar.
That's crazy.
And usually both, you know. And but that was a really cool time. And I got to Little Anthony. Yeah. You know, I could read music. Not great. But I could play in weird keys and things like that. So I could hang. And I wasn't... It definitely was not a high-level cat, you know, but I had high-level interests and high-level respect, and I would have done anything just to be a part of anything, you know, at that age, like at 18. Right. And I just...
You went to Berkeley, and then you scooted, right? I mean,
I went to Berkeley not long. I didn't go right after high school. I skipped a year, and then I went up. And when I was up there, I started hanging out at this club called the Jazz Workshop. Okay. And that's where I got to see Muddy Waters up close. I got to see Lafayette Leak. I got to see, from here to that wall, Miles Davis, McCoy Tyner. Got to hang out with Willie Dixon. Wow. I wrote
really?
I watched his show, and then I stuck around, and I helped him carry his shit up. And I got to play with Big Mama Thornton, who wrote You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. Yep. So I went on on a Tuesday night, and she didn't have a guitar player. And I went up to her. I says, hey, you don't have a guitar player? I says, I play guitar. And I was going to music school at the time. And so somehow she let me come back in. And so I played like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in her band. And she had George Harmonica Smith on harmonica at the time. Right. And I got to suck up on that vibe, you know. And I didn't. Yeah. Once again, I wasn't all that good, you know. I really took me a long time to find a voice, you know. I think, you know, couple things that helped me find a voice was playing with Warren King, who was from Monroeville, East Side, and was a naturally born guitar badass, world class.
Yeah.
World class.
Yeah.
I remember one time we played down in Texas with Ted Nugent, and Ted Nugent would do these guitar battles where he would like
I remember that era.
bring local guys up, and then he'd kick their ass.
Yeah, it was all staged.
Yeah, it was totally.
He met his match a few times though.
Yeah, he met his. Well, he wouldn't let Warren on stage. He was beating this guy's ass. Bugsy, who was in a band called Grinder Switchers. It was like he'd just gotten out of jail, and he was in Houston. Really nice guy.
Okay.
And he had him up on stage, and Warren. We were standing there, and the audience watching it, and I looked at Fish. I says, Fish, I said, they ain't even in your league. And he just walked away, took a little Fender concert amp, pushed it out on stage, and went up with a Les Paul and just started ripping.
Wow.
And the whole audience started going into him, and Ted had him
Pull
had us ready to
immediately.
get him right off the fucking stage.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe that.
And Warren was world class.
Wow.
Check this out. One time we're playing in Arkansas, and it was with Nugent and Rush.
Okay.
Rush went on first, and I was in the Diamonds with Warren and Frank Zori, and Ted was supposed to go on after us. So we go on, and we take the music down real low, and Warren's out there playing, and it comes down real low. So now Warren walks up to the end of the stage to play this delicious guitar solo. Fierce. And right as he's getting into it, some little kid goes, Ted Nugent, Ted Nugent! And Warren goes, what you're supposed to do.
That's great.
That's a true story. And then...
That's Norman's salute.
And then he does it again.
Wow.
And he gives him the finger again. He does it a third time, and Warren goes like this. He goes like... And he takes his Les Paul, holds it up over his head. He's wearing baggy khaki pants at the time, and he undoes his belt buckle, and then he goes like this, shakes his pants drop to the floor. He drops about 1.5 feet of meat on 2,000 Arkansanians, and the whole fucking joint goes, dude! And it was, and I got to see, standing on the side, what rock and roll's about.
Yeah.
I got to see it acted out as a play, as a real life play, not as a show like a Kiss thing, but as a show of manliness and a show of fighting for respect, and a show of, while I'm on this stage, it's my stage.
Yeah.
And I'm holding court. And this is, you want to fuck with me? You want to put me down and try to punk me? Warren, who was just a guy from Monroeville that played guitar better than just about anybody, you know, that but was such a tough guy and such a hard personality. Mm-hmm. His shot, and in a lot of ways, his own worst enemy as a person. I got a young buck asked about him, said, did he stand that tall? Did he drop his pants in Texas as he raised up his Les Paul? Tell me the story, how he blazed the trail. Yeah, the man they called a kingfish sure knew how to wail. Kingfish down in Memphis drunk up all his dough, got Elvis's phone number from a couple hoes. All them strippers tell you he get the winds in his sail. The man they called a kingfish shake the feathers of his tail. You know, that these are the rock and roll heroes. These are the guys that.
So that probably left a big impression on you that night in general, because you just talked about how that they fought for their stage.
You see how excited I am to tell that story?
But I mean, because
it's real.
But when I view you as a performer, forget the music for a second, on that stage, that you just exemplified the story you just told me. That's you. You're fighting constantly. You're not hurting anybody, but you're fighting for your place and respectability. And that engagement you have with the audience is so unique to me that you're almost like, I mean, the first time we saw you, we were intimidated. Like, we better get on this guy's bandwagon here. He may call us out and tell us to get the fuck out. I mean, that's the Jeans Blue Bars. I told you, I had never seen anything like that before. He was so fierce and engaging, and a lot of crescendos. It was up and down.
Well, that's how you do it. That's how you create. It's your time.
Yeah.
It's your...
And you utilize that.
I still do.
Yeah.
Because it's all I have. When you're blackballed in your own hometown, in the scene that you are a huge part of starting,
right. Correct,
and then these other people come in and just take your place and glorify themselves, and they jingle around or they just like hack off.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting there watching this. 30 years of watching it. It's like,
yeah.
And I'm blackballed. the fact that I was like that when I was young, it only told me that I was right all along. You know, and to this day, I know I'm right because I know I made my way. You know, Frank Sinatra, he did it his way.
Yeah.
My mother loved Frank Sinatra. In my household, if you mention Frank Sinatra's name, my mother made the sign of the cross. You know, to her, he was a saint.
Right.
And that he did it his way. You know, she would,
I love that phrase. I've tried to live my life that way.
Right? And in this great country, we can do that.
Absolutely right.
In this great country, we can. I've lived this life I've lived, and I'm so excited and so happy to be alive. Even under the black ball that's been laid upon me.
Yeah.
It never stopped me. It never made me give up or go, oh, man.
No, you fought through. You wore it as a badge.
I'm still fighting through.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I want to kick everybody's ass. I want to kick the best in the world's ass. And I want to do it after not having support.
Yeah.
And not
Proving
having.
that you don't need it. And you've proven you don't need it.
You know,
It'd be
what
nice to have it.
You know what
but
you
don't
need?
it.
You need some rocks in your shorts.
Got that right.
You need to stand up and be somebody.
Right.
And you need to engage and you need to follow through in life. You know, that's one thing that I've learned that's so that you can't buy. You can't buy knowledge and you can't buy experience. But I've learned that anybody can do anything, but you have to have that nasty, that tenacious follow through, and you
gotta
just
want it.
You got to want it so deeply.
With everything you have.
I mean, that's what I got. I have an intense, sickening desire. It's beautiful, and it's also scares the nice white people of our society. They don't want to believe that they don't want to believe that there's a level of desire and a level of need and a level of work that's deeper than they even know exists. People don't know. Musicians don't know what they don't know.
Got it.
You know, a lot of people play music and they, learn some chords and they learn a couple songs and, people. I always say I study all day long and people want to say, "What's that mean?" What do you mean you study? You learn the chords. They have no idea. It's like, well, no, I call it, when I work with musicians, I always say, they say I wrote this song. I say, well, here's what we're going to do. I says, I'm going to get you in a room. I says, then we're going to take that song and we're going to pull its pants down. And we're going to see what it's got in its shorts. We're going to take that piece of music and we're going to find out everything there can be found out about it.
Okay.
We're going to pull its pants down.
Yeah.
And give it a look.
Yeah.
And from there, and then we're going to rebuild it. And if there's anything there worth keeping,
got it.
We'll know it. But if there ain't, we'll explain to each other and look each other in the eye and decide why it isn't good enough or why it is. And if it isn't, you go back home.
Yeah.
And if you want to be the writer, think about what you learned today. Think about what you didn't bring to me in a song. And don't come back until you have something that answers the questions that this song didn't answer. And that's how I've always worked. And it scares so many people. And even with singers, I've worked with young people. Their parents, they bring their kids, they want to sing with, want me to teach them how to do things. And I work with them and I'll start trying to teach the kids. And the parents will be there, oh, no, that's perfect. You're so great. I'm going to go, get the hell out of the room. Why did you bring this kid to me if you don't?
I can't even imagine.
I can't even tell you, that they want me to help their kids,
right? But
they won't let me help their kids.
Okay.
And so another reason why I say I stopped working with other people and don't work with other writers because I'm so frustrated in the level of desire,
right? The
level of intensity.
Right.
Is how bad do you want it? I mean, most people don't get the chance to prove how bad they want something. You know who my favorite Steeler is? Mike Webster.
Yeah.
Greatest Steeler of all time because he just was the mule.
Day in, day out. They wasn't get the accolades.
No, he was
Webby.
He was just, they just counted on him. They didn't use his name. He was just Webby. He just was the center of that line.
All right.
And he was just there year after year after year.
Playing at the highest level.
Everything he had.
Yep.
And ultimately, he did give everything that he had and more. That's a tear in your eye.
Absolutely right.
That kind of desire is fucking.
It's so rare. It's not.
It's for us all to learn from.
If you pay attention, if you want to learn from it.
If you want to
That's
go
the problem.
you want to go that deep? You want to get in the deep water, you little prick? Get over here. I'll give you a smack.
All right, so I want to go back and talk about Diamond Reo, but before we do that, to bridge just what you said, you're quoted as saying you struggled at times in some parts of your career because the collection of people that you had around you in some recordings or maybe some live things, people were playing all together. They were playing on the same stage. But you said, my problem was they weren't playing together. And you said there's a big difference between getting together on a stage and all playing the same song, but then, as you view it, playing together, being tight, feeding off each other. And that's what you were looking for, right?
Here's how you say it.
Okay, maybe I'm not articulating right.
No, you're asking the right question, but here's how I'll say it.
Okay.
Just because everybody's playing at the same time.
Same time, that's it.
Don't mean they're playing together.
Right.
And that's what I teach.
Okay.
And that's what, nowadays, you have computer operators that call themselves producers. And that's why the music today doesn't seem to have a staying power, and it doesn't have the depth, and it doesn't.
There's no soul. There's no soul to it.
Not like the. I was so lucky to grow up when I grew up,
right.
and learn and rub up against all these great pieces of music. But when I hear things, even before I knew what I was doing, when I was in high school, when I would hear a drummer play, I would hear every note that he played, and I would hear every note that the bass player played, and I would want to hear, and I would go, he shouldn't have played that bass drum note, that bass player missed that hit by that drummer, or that drummer's too busy down on the bottom, it's taking the groove away, or you know what I mean, or that bass player's jacking off when he should be just hugging that bass drum, and all those things. I started hearing that as a little kid, like 15, 16 years old, and I would try and talk about it to people, and they would go like, what are you trying to act like you know more than everybody else? And so I couldn't talk about it a lot until one of my best friends, his name was Robbie Johns. He ended up being the drummer in the Diamonds. When I met him when I was 16, he was 14.
Yeah. And
he was the first guy I met that let me speak my mind and let me lead the music. Bands, he was in bands and I was in bands, and everybody just played. But I wanted more than that. So what I started as a teenage boy, I started putting bands together that were better than the guys in the band.
Got it.
And no one knew why, and I didn't know why. But I started doing that, and that's how I started climbing up the ladder, and how the better musicians started noticing that I existed.
Okay.
And so that's how that thing of you really need to know how to play together. You really need to know how to listen. And that's such a huge thing. And when you want to have great performances, when to stop playing altogether.
Okay.
Sometimes just stop playing.
Yeah. Sometimes the space between the notes is as important as the notes themselves. Wouldn't you agree?
No question. The spaces are a part of the music.
Right. That's lost on a lot of musicians.
Unbelievably.
A lot of guitar players that's lost on, I find.
Unbelievably. Those simple things that we're just speaking right now are so... There's not many real arrangers or producers anymore. And there's no one teaching guys how to... I heard one of the minions of the Evil Empire. I was just watching a video that they had of them playing a gig, and I saw that the bass player was playing, like when you're listening to a bar of music and boom, 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 boom. So that's like one and the end of two into the three.
Right.
And that's like a standard feel.
Yeah.
And I was watching this band, and the drummer was going boom, 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 and the bass player was going boom, 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 boom. And so they were playing the same amount of notes.
I get it. The spacing between were all wrong.
But the drummer was accenting the end of two, and the bass player was accenting the end of three. And so both of those notes were naked in between the one where they both hit, but the one before and the one after, the downbeat, was walking around the street naked.
Yeah. Got it.
And no one, and they were all smiling like it was cool. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing?
Well, you lose your punch, you lose your emphasis. It's gone.
Your feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's your feel? We're playing this simple music, and part of it, the simplicity and the relaxation. It doesn't have to be hard to play, but it needs to be easy to listen to.
Interesting.
And that's what I do. That's my job, is to take the simplest things. People always say, how can you play 4 hours of your own music and keep everybody in the room? Well, because I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? I make it easy for them to hear it. They'll say, well, what kind of music do you do? I say, I play rock and roll music. They'll say, what does that mean? I'll say, everything I do is going to sound like you heard it before.
Yeah, that's a good description. That's a very accurate and honest description.
It's all original.
Uh-huh.
And I don't do anything that your ear doesn't want to hear. And everything I do sounds like you heard it before. And that's the trick to playing. It's like rock, and it's even like, I always relate everything to sports, and when you look at football, what they're doing today, all these different things, everything they're doing in the NFL and everything they're doing in Major League Baseball is things that have been done before.
Right.
But what gets accentuated and what's the evolution of the craft and the field is part of what makes it intriguing. And that's how I look at the music thing. It's like everything I'm doing, someone else has done, but the way I'm integrating it with the songs I'm writing and the people that I'm playing with, and I put it like this: the dress that it's wearing,
it's unique to you.
Yeah. And now that dress, I'm wearing that dress or whatever, and I walk and it looks great on me. But if I had another singer out front, I'd change things a little bit to show how that singer is its prettiest. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
That's what. That's the fun of this shit. That's the fun of the music is knowing how to grow the garden to its highest output. Mm-hmm. But we're all using the exact same tools. Mm-hmm. I don't like effects. I don't like pedals.
I noticed that.
I don't like none of that. It's all
straight ahead.
It's all in arrangement and the writing. And then now you take the performance. Mm-hmm. What's in your shorts? Mm-hmm. Get out there and be somebody. Mm-hmm. Show me what you got,
Diamond Reo.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that for a second. You played bass in that band.
Yes, I did.
How did you join that band? How'd that come about?
I kind of started it.
Uh-huh.
I had been living the life, the most egregious, terrible time of my life.
Okay.
I never used the word egregious before.
I didn't expect to hear that word from you.
I'm blaming you for bringing it out of me.
You can.
You're no good, Aaron.
You having fun?
You're no good over there.
I know. If I'm not scolded by at least once or twice, then we didn't have fun today.
I'm with you. But I was playing in lounge bands, and I hated it. And in the lounge band people...
How do you qualify a lounge band? Give me, what's a lounge band?
Well, lounge bands were working.
Okay.
And this was the early 70s. So lounge bands were gigging, and I liked gigging a lot.
Okay.
I liked to work all the time. And they were working all the time, and you could get paid doing it. And a lounge band was a band that would play like in lounges and hotels. And you would get like 7 days.
So it wasn't a kind of music, it was just a venue.
It was a way of working.
Earn money as a musician.
Yes, it was a way. Yeah, it was a field. You would get into lounge, and you'd all wear the same thing, and you would all.
The word lounge lizard, did it come out of that era? Like the singers, they called them lounge lizards. Same kind of thing.
No, it was different? After that. Okay. Lounge lizards, I would think, would be and that would be like people that were imitating the Vegas-y Rat Pack thing in a sleaze. This came later, and it was bands that would play like pop songs, like Three Dog Night, and then soul songs as well.
Okay.
Like the pop music, and I fell into that because I needed money to live, and I wasn't going to do anything. This was after I got out of music school.
Okay.
When I come back home, and so I was playing in these lounge bands, and I knew, and I hated it, and I would almost cry on stage. I couldn't even talk to a woman at a gig because I'd be too embarrassed at what I was doing.
Okay.
I fucking hated it with everything I had. But I told you about Robbie Johns. Me and him had been playing through all this time. He was a drummer, and I was playing bass or guitar, whatever, keyboards, and I knew Bubs McKeag, really talented singer, guitar player, and I was working at the studio and at Fox Studio in East Liberty, and I had made a production. I started a production. I didn't know how to write songs at the time, and I was kind of like I say, the low man on the totem pole at the studio. But the guy at the studio, I says, let me try and cut something. So I put together an arrangement of a song called, what the hell was the name of it? It was an old Martha Vandellas song. And I put an arrangement together of it, and then I got sick. And I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And while I was in the hospital, the guy that produced and ran the studio brought Pete Hewlett in. Dancing in the Street was the name of the song. Brought Pete Hewlett in to sing it and finish it out.
Okay.
And Pete was really good looking. Sang his ass off.
Right.
Played guitar great. And got signed to RCA on the strength of that one song.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't fit into the plans for what they were doing with that. So I was just kind of out. And I was still at the studio, and Pete's on his way with this RCA thing, and I says to the guy down in the studio, I says, I started that project, and now I got...
Yeah.
And I says, let me try something else. So he says, all right. So I did an arrangement of Ain't That Peculiar. Used Robbie Jones on drums, I played bass. Bubs McKeag sang the lead, sang his ass off, and played guitar, and it was pretty good. And then we decided to bring Frank Zori in to sing background, and Warren King to play slide. Now we had something pretty substantial.
Okay.
Signed to Big Tree Records, which was owned by Atlantic. So now I'm in.
Okay.
It's my project. I'm kind of running it.
Okay.
And Tom Causey, who was a record business guy, very knowledgeable and very successful in New York, but from Pittsburgh. And I had known him from before when we were kids. He cut me back in 1968 with a band I was in called The Moon. But anyway, so we get signed to Big Tree and started going on the road. And while we were out on the road, we started getting nuts, literally nuts. And McKeag, who's a really good person and a really talented guy,
right.
just was like, you know what? You guys are a-holes. I'm out of here.
Okay.
So there we were. We had made this first record, and none of us really knew anything about rock and roll. Like I said, I had been playing in lounge bands and studying arrangement, big band arrangement. Right. I wanted to write arrangements for Frank Sinatra shit.
Got it.
So we put this record together, and it wasn't. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just recording things that we liked, and McKeag was writing a little bit. Well, anyway, what happened is, once we cut that record, Frank Zori said, "Hey, if you can get a record deal, I'll join the band."
Well, yeah.
So we got it signed, and then Frank joined the band. So now it's a 4-piece.
Got it.
We started going out and playing dates with Aerosmith, Kiss.
I saw that.
And then we realized
was that a little eclectic. I mean, Kiss was in there. This was in the beginning for them.
Totally,
right?
yeah.
They were straight ahead, just like 3-chord rock and roll. Then, right?
Just kind of like musically, what they always they never changed much musically.
I'm aware.
And we I think we saw them before we even played with them. I think.
What did you think of that?
I thought it was a comedy act, and I thought it was hilarious. And I thought it was great. Do you know what I mean? I just thought these guys are fantastic. It's just funny as hell. I mean, this is. They
have a little bit of your spirit, from just my time working with them over the years. They really, that showman part of it's there. They want to knock you off
they do.
They want to knock you out of your seat.
They do.
Right.
And I mean, it's what they do. They found this thing,
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as music.
Right.
I thought of Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye. To me.
They
Dylan,
thought of it as money.
The band.
They thought of it as money.
Well, but they found this thing.
Yeah.
And they worked hard.
Right. No question.
And I respect it.
No question.
But to me, it never was music.
Yeah.
I never wanted anything to do with that.
It wasn't literally musical. It wasn't in nature. It wasn't musical.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
But so once when we added Warren King, once we started playing with those bands.
Got it.
And like I say, when we made the first record, it was a halfway cool record, but we weren't really an act. We were just people that were recording things. And then, but we started playing with all them bands instantly. Nugent, and Kiss, Blue Oyster Cult, and Kansas, and we started learning real quick. And we started being on these stages and watching the people's eyes, and started realizing we started gravitating more towards the Stones, and Aerosmith.
So I hear little Stones in you.
Real early on, we just started going that way, and I say getting real crazy, party wise.
Yeah.
And McKay was like, you guys, I'm done. So he stepped out of the thing. So once he stepped out of the thing, and with the things we had done while he was there, we started finding ourselves.
Okay.
As a little four-piece. Guitar, bass, drums with a singer out front. And Warren King was the guitar player, better than just about everybody else.
Yeah.
And Frank Zori out front, better than just about everybody else. And a solid rhythm section with me and Beadman.
Right.
And we started doing a lot of dates, and then we came in. We cut our second record, which was called Dirty Diamonds, and fantastic record. And we cut it at the Hit Factory, where John Lennon cut.
Okay, yeah.
And we were hanging out with those engineers and those people in New York City.
That had to be trippy.
Crazy and fantastic. And that was the first time I realized. The first time I realized that maybe what I was doing had significance, because when we were cutting there, and after watching us work, people started coming to me for decisions on how to make the music and how we were building. They didn't go to Frank, and they didn't go to Warren. They came to me, and I started and that's when I realized I was a producer. Before that, I just thought I was just the guy that did it because no one else wanted to.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I knew anything. But when I started hanging in New York City, I started realizing, hey, what I know is what most of these other guys don't know.
Right.
And I'm on my way to being a real producer, like that could be world class. I'm cutting in the studio with fucking John Lennon.
Right.
And so that record come out, and then we started kicking everybody's ass. I mean, we were scaring everybody at the same time. And
as
that's
the opening act, you're scaring the headliner.
Always. And getting thrown out.
But you love that, don't you?
You kidding me? Still do. That's all, because that's all I ever had.
Yeah. So the perennial underdog kind of fits.
That's all the whole way through. That's because that's all I could ever get for myself. I could never put myself in a position to get any more than that.
Okay.
Other than some face-to-face street respect, and then you're on your own. And then thrown out of the corporate thing.
Yeah.
And just left to be, you got something really cool. Now get the hell out of here.
Okay.
And it's still that way.
Okay.
And and then our manager, at the time we were managed by a guy from Detroit, Al Nally, and he managed Brownsville Station. And one of the things, when we first started playing with the Diamonds, we did a show with Aerosmith in Brownsville Station.
Okay.
And the manager of Brownsville Station came to me and says, hey, we want you to join Brownsville Station. And I says, I thought about it. I says, I don't think so. And I says, how about you managing my group? And he was like, well, you guys are pretty crazy. I says, no, we're cool. We're cool. So he took us on, and we started hanging in Detroit.
Okay.
And while we were hanging up there, like I said, I got an offer to play with Brownsville Station. I got an offer to play with the MC5. I auditioned for the MC5.
That was a wild band.
Yeah, and they offered me the gig, and then I turned it down. And I also got...
You might have fit in well there.
Really.
Temperament and music style. That might have been very interesting.
And I also got offered a job singing with, a few years later, with a band called the Rockets.
Okay.
Which were out of Detroit, with Jimmy McCarty, the guitar player from Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. Was the guitar player for that band. I got the offer to be the singer for that band. So I had three pretty cool Detroit acts offer me a job as one of their sidemen, But anyway, and then we came back home and continued to write after the Dirty Diamonds things. Then we wrote an album called Rough Cuts, and it's a fantastic world class record. I produced it, and I actually produced Dirty Diamonds, but I didn't get credit for it. Adrian, somebody who had produced Aerosmith's first record, got credit for it.
Okay.
But anyway, and we cut this Rough Cuts record, and it was fantastic. It really was. And still to this day, when you hear it, might be the best rock and roll record ever cut in Pittsburgh by a Pittsburgh band. And then we kept gigging and stuff and scaring people. And then the punk scene came. We started hanging out in New York City, and like,
what did you think of that?
I was intrigued by the nastiness of the attitude, and but I wasn't. But being such a music guy,
there was nothing musically going on there.
Not often.
Yeah.
But you'd see it. You know, you saw it in Elvis Costello's first record. But he was marketed as punk rock.
He's punk. That new wave.
Yeah, but he was marketed as punk.
Joe Jackson. These guys were punk. The Sex Pistols were punk to me.
Well, we were booked to open for the Sex Pistols.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, at the Leona Theater in Homestead, and then the kid killed himself.
The whole thing imploded.
But we were hanging in that scene in the city. We were hanging in the village.
Wow.
And with the Dead Boys. And we met all those guys. Did you like the energy of that, of their performances? But the musical part of you was left void there. There wasn't a lot going on there. New York Dolls. But what we just adopted the attitude and the stylishness of it, and that's where a lot of people that were manically into music were there.
Okay.
So that fit for us
because it was the next thing. It's just
because it was the thing.
Okay.
Even though it was the next thing, we were there when it was before it became the thing. We were, on that street level as it was just happening.
Got it.
We were there, and we were playing Max's Kansas City. Up in the Dolls and all that.
Yeah.
So we really thought we had a chance to find a new life again.
Okay.
Within the music business, because we thought of ourselves as cats that could play at extremely high level, but we had the attitude and the street sensibilities of these punkers.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think hurt us was the fact that the first Diamond Reo record was so pop and so far from street level.
That, right.
From that, and people saw us. We grew up in public. We gravitated from the first Diamond Reo to the second, which was like pop record, then almost like a heavy metal, they called it heavy music. The Dirty Diamonds was a heavy record, and to this day, it's thought of as one of the top 5 undiscovered rock albums of all time. We just put it out in England again a couple years ago, and that's what they marketed as one of the greatest undiscovered hard rock records of all time.
Okay,
and then we did this new thing was called Rough Cuts, which was somewhere between the Stones and the Sex Pistols. And then we cut another album that I'm working on again right now that was never released.
Yeah, unreleased.
And is that
going to come out?
Yeah, next year.
All right.
And I'm working on it right now. I just got it. I haven't even heard it, but they transferred it all from the old tapes to digital. In fact, today when I get home, I have to call the studio to start working on that again.
Okay. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's way cool.
Yeah,
because it's the history of our city.
That's a time capsule. I mean, that's almost like going back, grabbing that time capsule, not bringing it out.
And it's
for
a full album. It's a full album and more. And there's also a live album of it too. So there's a message.
You think that'll surface the live material?
Yeah, I do. And but in this new world, it's hard to. I'm not a good business guy. I don't know about how business works and how to do things that way. I'm just a music guy. So I'm going to develop all that, and hopefully along the way, maybe I can meet somebody or get some. When I mentioned the Diamond Reo thing, this new music, 3 record companies from Europe within an hour contacted me, said, well, if you get that Diamond Reo thing, let us know. We'd be interested in it. Greece, Sweden, and England. Companies in all 3 countries were interested in the Diamonds thing.
Yeah, but you had other music that charted pretty well in Munich and in Germany too, if I'm not mistaken.
That came later. Okay, that came in 1990 with.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. So what was the end of Diamond Reo when you obviously made a decision you're going to do your own thing?
Yeah, and you know what happened? We just had gotten so crazy as guys.
Okay.
There was 4 of us, and we had all gotten crazy. And I was a part of that, but even in my wildness in my 20s, I never lost this guy that you're looking at today, and I never deviated from the work of it all, and I never didn't want to constantly work.
Okay.
All day, every day, and as we were being the Diamonds and living this life and doing the things that we were doing, I think we went too far.
Okay.
And that's when I left. And
just lifestyle stuff? Was it partying? Was it just...
It's just the way we were behaving.
Okay.
And I just felt like I couldn't keep the music moving forward.
Yeah.
And I couldn't keep everybody engaged
Yeah.
in the way I needed to, because I was the leader of it, but I wasn't the official leader.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It was like I was the official leader in a way, but I only had so much control because I wasn't the star. Put it that way.
Interesting.
That's the best way to say it. I wasn't the star,
Got it.
So I had to.
So as the bass player, it was your gig. I mean, it was your project, running it all, but you weren't out front.
Right, and so I only had so much clout and
it.
getting the other guys to do the things I needed them to do.
Got it.
To continue to move forward. And when I realized that I had lost total control, I left.
Okay.
And I started the Norman thing.
Okay.
And that's how. And then that became Norman Nardini and the Tigers.
So is it right that Diamond Reo ended? Was it 79?
Yes.
Okay. And from there, you made a decision that you wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah. I wanted to do my own thing, and
Norm, bring us a little bit closer to you. I have to make sure. Yeah, you go.
I wanted to do my own thing, and what I wanted to do was, my plan was, I wanted to put my name out in front of a band.
Okay.
Because I wanted people to know my name, because I thought I could get other people to have me produce their records. And that's what I thought. That's where I thought I was going. I had
that was the angle then.
That was the angle.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to be Norman Nardini. And then we called it Norman Nardini and the East Side Tigers.
That's my question. Initially, it was the East Side Tigers, right?
Because we were East Siders, and I still see myself as an East Sider, and I still see the East Side as the soul side and the real music side of Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
That's how I see it. I don't see the South Hills bands, and I always say if I go to the South Hills, I need to get an inoculation. You know what I mean? Because one of my bullshit raps.
How do you feel about the West?
Well, the West End is like, to me, West End is kind of like the city. So
it is.
McKee's Rocks.
We claim that out though. We claim the West End out here in the West. We claim that,
and I like that because you should, and it's cool that you know that's something to cling to. You know, when you get too far out into the suburbs, you just get out to that candy ass place where it's all jingle jangle happy bullshit.
There's no grittiness to it. The music.
You want the city.
Yeah.
You want that mix of cultures. That's where it happens. You know, that to us. You know, and that's what the East Side had to offer. You know, we were culturally more. You know, we were tuned into the colors. Of the world, you know, more so than the suburbs. The suburbs are more into the pale,
sterile,
the pale tones.
Yeah.
In the city, you know, you're into the darks and the grays and the browns, you know, and mixing all that together. And that's where we felt like, that's where we knew we had an edge.
Okay.
Because we were drawn deeper water.
So to put that band together, what was your thoughts initially?
I wanted people to know my name because I wanted them to have me produce their records. You know, in fact, the guys that I ended up using, I produced a record for a band called Resistance.
Right. I got it.
And that had Nason Gigg, who was from Altoona, and Whitey Cooper, who was from Altoona, and Paul Shook, who was from Millville. Real pretty Polish boy. Blue eyes. He was something. He had buys, tries, pecs, lats, all that shit. Big titties on him. Busting out of his shirt, real blue-eyed Polak. He was pretty as an MFer, man. He was. And he was the sweetest, most fun.
Yeah.
He was a total fucking guy. You know, he was just, we all were.
Yeah.
You know, we were animals.
Yeah.
We loved it. But, you know, at that point it was like in the Diamonds, I led the thing, but I was not in control of Frank and Warren, you know. Yeah. They were both very strong spirits and both extremely talented, you know.
Right.
And I reined them in as much as I could, and I did what I could with what they offered. Right. You know, but once I started my thing, now it was, hey, you work for me.
Got it.
This isn't a band where everybody gets the same amount of money and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I'll pay you to work for me, and you
Understood.
do what I tell you. You
Right.
play, and that's how I ran the Tigers, you know. But I had this experience with being with the Diamonds. I knew what was up, you know. I knew how to kick ass.
You
And
learned
I,
a little bit about the industry as well too, obviously.
I knew about the business,
Yeah.
not a ton, because I was never. But at that time, I didn't realize that I was terrible at business.
Okay.
Now I do, and now I accept that, and I put that right out there.
Oh, man needs to know his limitations, right?
I'm very aware of mine, but I'm also
Comes with age.
yeah, and it comes with acceptance.
Sure.
And also, hey, I know I'm good at certain things,
Uh-huh.
and then there's certain things I ain't, and I'll tell you straight
Yeah,
up. And
right
I ain't
on.
embarrassed about not being good at certain things,
Right,
you know, because
right.
I know other people have those skills. And I don't want to disrespect them, you know, for what they're good at, you know,
Mm-hmm, Right.
and that's what makes up the world, you know, which is
Makes up bands too.
no
Everybody's got
question.
everybody's got
You
their
need
thing.
all those different angles.
All right, so you started this in '79. You guys started getting your traction starting in '80. Is that correct?
Well-
that's a very interesting time though for music. I mean,
Oh, it was
new
killer.
waves coming in. MTV is starting to somewhat.
Well, you
be
know
a-
what was crazy?
Be a thing.
I'll tell you. Here's what happened at the end of the Diamonds.
Okay.
I went to the Evil Empire radio station. I hadn't been blackballed.
Okay.
Although they weren't playing our music, and I met this guy. He was the program director. His name was John McGann.
Uh-huh.
And he wasn't from here, and he was running the station. And I went down there, and I brought my music with the Diamonds, and he saw me. You know, I think I was 28, real pretty, real crazy, young. You know, and I started talking to this guy, and I started playing him my music, this Diamonds music we're cutting.
Yeah.
And he's going, he says, this band's incredible. This is fantastic. And he says, but the sound of the overall sound of it just doesn't quite working for what we need to play here. So I played him, 6 or 7 tunes, came back again, played him some more songs. He kept saying the sound of what you're doing just isn't what we can use. And I said to him, look, I got one more song. And I played him a song that I sang lead on only because my lead singer wouldn't show up at the studio to sing.
Okay.
So I says, here, check this song out. I said, because it's a little different. And I says, but see what you think of this. And I played it for him, and he goes, I like this. This is hot. And he says, who's singing this? And I says, don't worry. I says, that's me. I said, that's me. I says, don't worry, I'll get that changed. And he goes, no. He says, I like that. He says, the sound of your voice works with what's happening in what I'm hearing in today's radio.
Okay. Was that your first affirmation as a singer then?
Yeah.
All right.
And it wasn't. It didn't even click.
Okay.
Really, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Because I thought, and I still, I didn't really start thinking I started sounding good singing until 10 years ago.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
So anyway, that got me a little bit. And what had been happening with the Diamonds at the end, I was going in and cutting stuff, but the singer wouldn't come in and sing it a lot. So I'd sing the songs in the studio to show him for a lead track for him to learn. And he didn't like what I was writing a lot. And I get that, I wasn't never mad about it. Because he had high level writing skills. He really did. He was developed as a writer more than me at that point.
It was just different. It was different.
but he was no slouch.
Okay.
He had shit to offer. And so I always respected that. And so I understood when he would say, I ain't singing that, or that ain't me. It never bothered me that he felt that it wasn't right for him. You know what I mean? Because I had so much respect for him. So anyway, that was kind of like an inkling of me starting my Norman thing. And then I had these tunes that I'd been cutting with the Diamonds that I had my vocals on, and then I started hearing the new music that was coming out, and it wasn't featuring great singers.
Right.
Like you said, the 1980s was an
Right.
interesting time in music.
No question.
And it opened the door for a slouch like me.
Interesting.
And I kind of smelled it, but I didn't know what was up. But I knew that there was a chance because I would hear these guys singing. I go, Christ, he ain't no good. I could sing that good. So that kind of I think gave me a little bit of wings, a license to
Okay.
to feel like I could be the guy out front.
Okay.
So anyway, the Diamonds are broken up for a couple months, and the drummer from the Diamonds' little brother was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And he comes to me and he says, hey, it's 1979, June, or end of May or whatever, and he says, hey, our school wants to have a band play on the last day of school. And I told him about you, and he says, and they want to pay for like $400. And I said, really? You know what I mean? Because
It's 79, right?
Right, exactly. And I hadn't been working with the Dies.
Yeah.
So I says, really? He says, how about we do it? And he says, then I'll play drums. Because his brother was my drummer.
Right.
And this kid had grown up watching us.
Yeah.
And he had a feel. And so I hired Warren King from the Diamonds, and this other guy had been hanging out with, we've been talking about doing something together, this guy Ray Gunn, played bass. And David Johns, bead man, Robbie Johns' little brother. So we played that gig at the high school. And it was my first gig as a singer. And I knew 2-3 songs, and I was like, you know what? This is easy. You know what I mean? I could just feel the power of it. I just started like going like, oh my God.
It was natural to you.
Totally. And I didn't sing good, and I didn't even play guitar real good. But I could see everybody's eyes on me and how comfortable it was. And I was writing the lyrics to the songs, and I was writing all the songs, and I just knew. So we played that way for a while, and that drummer, his father didn't want him to play with me because he said to me, we were going to rehearse with this kid. I was going to use him as a drummer.
Right.
His name was David. He was 18 years old. And I went to pick him up for his rehearsal, and his father said to me, he says, you ruined my first son's life. I don't want you to ruin my second son's life. He ain't playing with you.
No shit.
That's what his father said to me.
Wow.
And so that was that. So I hired this black kid, Derek Edwards, about 250-pound black guy, real good guy. And he started playing drums with me. And he had never been out of East Liberty. And Warren was playing with me while they were putting the silencers together.
Yeah.
Which was Frank and Warren from the Diamonds became the silencers.
Yep.
So they're doing all of that. And they're getting a record deal and starting to get smoke, good smoke blown about them because Frank and Warren, two really talented, two of the most talented guys ever. And then they added Bird Foster, who might be the most talented Pittsburgh musician ever.
Wow.
I can think of one guy that had more talent than him. But anyway, so that goes on, and they're getting steam, and they're on CBS, and Causey is now managing them, and they're going forward.
Okay.
And I'm just like hacking out gigs, and I'm cool though, because I'm doing dates and I'm starting to establish myself, and I'm playing 4 or 5 nights a week. And the way I did it was, I go to a club. They say, "Well, what do you want to play?" I said, "Don't worry about it." I says, "Charge $5 at the door, $2 at the door, $3, whatever." I says, "And I'll take the door." And I started drawing them in. As soon as I started doing it, people started coming to see me. And I started putting, we had the Tiger guitars.
Yeah.
And we had these guys, Ray Gunn and Paul Shook had big chests and muscles. And both real good looking guys.
Yeah.
Nason, he was like a beast he always called himself ruggedly handsome. And he was a big hunk of man, And he was like a half roadie, half musician.
Uh-huh.
And really 100% guy.
Yeah.
But he also had engineering skills. And, he had a lot to offer. And then we had Whitey Cooper on drums, who could sing good background. Mm-hmm. So we started doing, and I hired them right at the beginning of 1980.
Okay.
Not long after I hired them, I got a buddy of mine in New York called me up and says, "Hey, there's a club in Asbury Park named the Fast Lane. It's the competition for the Stone Pony. It's right down the street."
Okay.
And he said they have a band there that all the locals are getting behind, and they're looking to bring an out-of-town band in to open a show for them. I says, "What's the name of the band?" He says, "The Rest."
Yeah.
I says, "Cool." I says, "We'll take the date." So we go down. We had been gigging constantly.
Okay.
Constantly for months, just a few months, and but I had been gigging since that June in Diamonds. I'd been gigging like
not stopped.
Non-stop,
right? With
different guys, and sometimes I just play 3-piece, bass player and drum. Just my energy alone would carry the night.
Yeah, right on.
So we do this gig in Asbury Park, and we do the sound check, and we just dog it through the sound check because we had driven. We didn't even take. We knew what we had to offer.
Yeah.
So we just dogged
You
it.
guys were that tight in that season.
We were scary.
Yeah.
And we were performance, you know, and we dogged it through the sound check, and then we watched the band, the headlining band, The Rest, do their sound check. We said,
The Rest.
Yeah, it was the name of the band. The lead singer was John Bon Jovi.
Right. Right.
Young, 18 years old, not real experienced. So we go on and do our set, and stormtrooped this fucking club. I mean, just stormtrooped it. And the guitar player from The Rest, a guy named Jack Ponte, very unique guy, ended up managing Eric Badu, ended up managing the Nelsons, the sons of Nelson.
Yep, Ricky Nelson's sons.
Pretty amazing guy. And he was kind of leader of the band, and John was the singer.
Okay.
And I remember them at the end of our gig, they were both scared out of their fucking minds because they had never seen nothing like what we did. Because they were young, you know, and they had seen things in Jersey, but they had never really seen someone so desperate and so natural.
Aggressive, too, probably.
No question. And they went on and did their set, and it was cool. But we beat their asses pretty bad.
Okay.
And then at the end of the gig, I remember this. This is the greatest story. We're all sitting on the stage, and everybody's getting their shit done. The club is empty, except a couple chicks were standing on the stage waiting for those guys. Couple groupie types, you know, good-looking young girls, and Shook's getting drunk, pretty Pollock, and everybody's sitting around on the stage, and Shook goes like this. He goes, "Hey, yous," and to these two yous, to these two girls over there, and he goes like this. And he announces it loud as can be, drunk, Pollock, beautiful, hunky from Millville, and he goes, "I can't believe you girls are going home with him." When you can come back to the hotel with us right now. Got right up and walked right over to him, one on each side of him, and he walked him out of the club. And Johnny was sitting there watching that and loved it and loved us.
Right.
So we all became friends, and we started hanging. You know, he brought us over to his house to meet his parents, and we did things together. And if he even had me up to New York to cut. His uncle owned the biggest studio in New York City.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
Yeah. The Power Station. Tony Bon Jovi.
I'm familiar with the Power Station.
His uncle, Tony Bon Jovi, owned it. Johnny became, as soon as he got out of high school, became the janitor there.
That story makes sense to me. I remember hearing that.
Yeah. Well, that's how it happened.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how we got to be buddies with him. But that was what it was like with the Tigers. You know, we were everywhere we went.
Was your musical style different than what he was playing at that time?
What John was?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were playing like a combination.
Bon Jovi was a power pop, like tinge of hard rock in there, but more power pop.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that with you.
No, we didn't have that.
Okay.
We didn't have that.
Yeah.
We were more street rock, you know.
Yeah.
We were somewhere between the Stones and the Clash.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of a aggressive we stole things. As a music guy, you know, I
you take from everybody.
Yeah, and I understand how things, when people do something musically, I know what it is.
Right.
So I know how to do it again and how to build it. What you know, what are you doing musically to make these things happen? I always would, and that's, you know, the same thing with the Diamonds, you know, I would just incorporate musical tools.
Right.
And we were, like I say, we were doing like somewhere between a little bit of AC/DC, a little bit of Stones. You know, that's how we were doing. I didn't sing real good, you know. I've almost talked and sang and screamed, but we were a force to be reckoned with. You know, we would stormtroop stages, and everybody worked for the team. And the Tigers, they were Tigers. They worked for me.
They were tight.
As people and as musicians, none of them were real good. Put it like this: ain't nobody tried to steal my musicians from me. You know what I'm saying, Eric?
I get it.
Nobody wanted to steal my guys. They worked for me.
Yeah, but you got the best out of them, though.
I tried to do that with. I think I did that with Warren King and Frank Zoria and Robbie Johns as well, and even McKenna.
Understood.
You know, I always tried to get the best. That's how I got into business, was getting the best out of others.
Got it.
And then as I've gotten older, it's become more and more getting the best out of me. You know, that's where I'm at now. But anyway, and then that's how the Tigers thing started, you know. And then we started playing up in Cleveland, and just in Cleveland, I don't know if you know about Cleveland, but in Cleveland, whatever's new, whatever's trendy, is big in Cleveland.
Interesting.
Cleveland is the place where the trends in America. It's the biggest trend town in America.
Interesting.
And in those days, bands that needed to break, record companies took them to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And if you couldn't get them started in Cleveland, you couldn't get them started. And that's Southside Johnny, Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
You know, and all the hard rock bands.
I think Rush started there. They got airplay in Cleveland
in America?
First. Yeah, in Cleveland first, and it went from there.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's what they did. You know, there was this the Agora was this
Agora Ballroom.
It was a mecca. And there was a hotel there where all the party, you know, Jimmy Swingo's hotel was like where where all the rock and roll sex scenes and maniac shit happened.
Zeppelin wrote a whole section of their books on that stuff on
Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so we became huge there on the street.
Got it.
And just started taking over the town. And we cut our first album was cut live on the Agora stage for WMMS, and I sold it to Buddha Records.
Okay.
Leased it to Buddha Records in New York City, and that's how the Tigers got noticed enough to get picked up by CBS a couple years later.
Right.
But there's a crazy story about that, and I'll sing it in this song that I'm going to sing for you later. The guy that owned Buddha and Kama Sutra Records was the biggest gangster of the music business.
Okay.
His name was Morris Levy, and he was the guy that supposedly hung one of his black artists out the window when he asked for his royalties. He had his bodyguard hang him out the window of a skyscraper saying, "You want your royalties?"
Wow.
And that's depicted in one of these,
movies.
The Cadillac movies or something.
Yeah.
And but anyway, he owned the label that I was on. And we were up there promoting that record, and me and Ray Gunn, we were making phone calls to college stations to say, "Hey, we got a new record out. It's called Eating Alive." 1981 was the time, and
that was a live album. That was a live one.
Cut it to Agora.
Yeah, I had that album.
And so check this out. It's like a punk rock record.
Yeah.
It has
there's elements of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a unique energy and a unique. It captured what we were doing better than the CBS records.
Right on, better than the studio
Those weren't
stuff.
good records.
Right.
I ain't ashamed to admit when I make a bad record. Some people are. But anyway, while we were promoting that record in Morris Levy's office, we're on phone all day. I says to the guy that's this friend of mine, Jack Kreisberg, I says, "Hey, Jack," I says, "Jesus Christ, we've been on the phone all day." I says, "I'd like to take a couple." And he says, "I don't want you going out in the street." He says, "This is Midtown. You can't go out there. They'll pick you up. They'll arrest you." And he was real nervous about it. I says, "Well, you got a hallway or a staircase I can go in and take a couple hits?" And he's like, "No, I can't do it." So he left the room. And I looked at Ray Gunn. I says, "Come on." I says, "Let's go find a place where you can do a couple hits." And we found an office, a nice office. And it ended up being Morris Levy's office. We went in there and smoked a joint.
Of course.
Morris was in Florida at the time.
Wow.
And then as years went on, I started, you read about Tommy James's book, about Morris Levy, the gangster that stole them from Bob Mack, who was from Pittsburgh and all that shit. Then I realized that what I did, I could have really got myself in trouble doing. I just did it anyway. But but it ended up in my newest song. But that's how we got started, and then we just really, and then we ended up getting signed by CBS a couple years later and did a couple records with them.
There's a couple of videos in there, right? I've seen some
we did
music.
One,
a music video for MTV.
We did an MTV video.
Yeah.
I remember I was on there Martha Quinn and there was a guy, I forget what his name was.
Long hair, blonde guy?
No, dark hair guy, kind of curly-ish hair.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Mark somebody.
Yes.
Mark somebody, yeah.
One
of the original VJs.
Yeah. We went on with him and this Martha Quinn and we took a shot at it and but I really believe.
Do you remember any part of that video process? Do you remember filming that?
Sure, we filmed it at Mancini's. In the Rocks.
What were you thinking at the time? Like the video was now being incorporated in the selling of music. Were you excited about that? Did you dig it? Was it weird? Do you remember?
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking, I'm in the perfect band to be doing this shit.
Visual.
Because we were more visual than musical.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
We were that, and And if I had made the right records, and if I had more together, and if I had developed my singing better and my writing better, and if I had used my efforts, which were never stopped, trying, but you don't always know where to put your energy. You're always trying, you're always working, and I think I made some mistakes in how I spent my time and how what I thought was most important.
Okay.
And I also made mistakes in underestimating what I had to offer.
Okay.
I never thought I could become a good singer.
Huh.
I never even imagined that I could become a good singer. I never imagined that I could become a good guitar player through the 80s. I didn't think of myself as a good singer or a good guitar player at all, because I knew I wasn't, because I had worked with great ones, singers and guitar players, and I had so much respect for those things and the people that did them well naturally. And and the way I factored in things, and I made mistakes, and so those records weren't great. And I think that's why I didn't have more success with the Tigers. I think it was my fault. And what are you going to do? So I remember when after the second record on CBS, Tony Martell was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And he says
he was
to me,
president of CBS Music then, wasn't he?
He was president
of the record company.
He was president of one side.
Okay.
Because it was divided in, there was the Epic side and the Columbia side.
Okay.
He was the Columbia side, and they gave him his own label, CBS Associated, and that's what I was signed to, Tony's personal label.
Got it.
And after 2 records, he said to me right to my face, he says, I got to let you go. He says, you done me the kind of business I need. And I said to him, I says, hey, Tony, I says, is there anything I can do to get one more chance with you guys? I'd really like working with you, and I really would love a chance to do one more record. He says, there's one thing that you could do that would make me fight for you to have another LP. And I says, what's that? He says, there's this woman that we're starting to feel like is going to make some big success. She's a manager. And if you could get her interested in you, I think we could find a way to do another record. Sharon Osbourne. And I tried and
she did pretty good.
I tried to get with her, and I tried to get her
interested. You reached out to her?
Oh yeah, reached out to a lot of people, and but I couldn't get her to respond. She didn't have any interest in me. And but that was he said if you can get that bitch on your team, he says we're gonna give you another look.
Yeah.
But I couldn't pull it off. He said she's married to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. She resurrected Ozzy pretty much,
And he says, he had his day, but we think she's going to bring him back, and we want to be a part of that, and we're going to be a part of that, and because we have a lot of belief in her, and that's what he said to me.
Wow. Wow.
So, but that was the end of my time at CBS.
So when that was done, what was your initial thoughts? I mean, because I don't ever view you as being a person that there's really never really real highs and really no deep lows with you. But was that a setback? Did you dwell on that at all?
Not for a minute.
Okay.
Because I knew, I understood, and what I knew was this: I knew that I had 2 albums on CBS, and I didn't make good records either time.
So you didn't like them?
I knew I didn't have enough to offer.
Okay.
And I knew and I even said it to my guys. I said, we're done with CBS. We're off. It's over. I says, what we need to do now is reconstitute ourselves and start studying again. And stop traveling so much and start working on our playing and our singing and our writing and our arrangements. And we have to become something new. And we have to find what's in us.
Okay.
And the guys in the Tigers are going like, no, I think you got to find us a better manager. That's what the guys thought in the band.
Okay.
And that's when I left. And they kind of blamed it on me, not for what I did musically,
right?
But they blamed it on me that I wasn't handling the business well enough.
Couldn't get them to the next level.
Right. And so that's when I broke the band up.
And then you went on as Norm Nardini.
Yeah. And that's when I started studying.
Okay.
Like all the time. That's when I started studying guitar first. And like at the end of the 80s, I started playing guitar constantly and studying and finding myself and, working. I started tuning my guitar down a half step. And then a whole step so that I could play 5 and 6 hours at a time, 6-7 days a week.
Naturally, that would affect your singing, though. If the song's down.
But I wasn't worried about singing at that point.
Okay.
All I was worried about was playing guitar.
Interesting.
And so I spent like the next 10 years constantly studying guitar and finding a voice and playing 3-piece most of the time. And I started finding a voice on guitar. And
so you really didn't think you found your voice on guitar until like 90, around like 1990, that time frame?
No, I didn't think I found my voice until about
2000.
No, I would say probably, I don't know. Something in the middle
Generally.
90s. In the middle 90s,
mid-90s.
I found my voice on guitar,
Okay.
And
Okay.
but I never really thought of I always compared myself to the best in the world. So you know what I mean? It's like how
But the bar was too high for you to form your own opinion of your own work, right? Because the bar was so high.
Yeah, and I wanted to be as good as Johnny Winter. I wanted to be as good as Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Got it.
And I wasn't.
Yeah,
so that's that's how I saw myself, as
everybody
not
else,
as
too.
good as the best in the world.
Okay.
But I knew I could hack, and I had, and I also knew I was finding a voice. I knew I knew it was starting to become natural, and I knew I had some steam and I had some heat, and I had squeezed that out of myself with all I had.
Okay.
Worked like I can't even tell you how hard I worked at it.
Okay.
I got arthritis all through my hands now, but and then I started, as I'm doing that, I'm still gigging constantly.
Okay.
And I'm starting to write better, but not as good as I needed to write. And so then things started happening like locally, where like in the 90s is when I had the falling out with the Evil Empire, and I became blackballed here.
But wasn't the music scene in the 90s pretty good, though, for clubs in town? Like, do you feel like it was still pretty viable? Yeah. I mean, there's like, and let me talk about the decade. The graffiti.
That was the 80s.
When did the decade close?
In the 90s.
Okay.
But the heyday of the 80s.
Got it.
Or heyday of the decade was the 80s.
Okay.
And this is...
You're part of the 4 bands that were there for a period of time. You guys were the house bands. It was
here's
you,
what
Billy
I'll
Price,
say. Me, Billy
Rockers?
Price, the House Rockers, and the Silencers. Billy worked constantly.
Okay.
But when it came to the House Rockers and the Silencers, they gigged. But if you added up the work that both of those bands did together, it didn't come even close to what we did with the Tigers. They got much more credit than we did, but because they were both into getting credit.
Got it.
We weren't into getting credit. We were into doing the work, history hasn't shown that that we were the work mules of that whole era by far.
You got it sounds like to me like you're saying you got validation from performance in the craft you were doing,
and that's what carried the scene. Do you know what I mean? We carried the scene. Those guys, they definitely had something to offer, and they definitely had their piece of it.
Right.
But they didn't work like we worked.
Okay.
Or even close.
Yeah.
Or even, they do one gig here, one gig there, a couple gigs a week, and they'll say, "Oh, we were really gigging a lot."
They weren't grinding.
I have a history of everything I've done. I have every gig. I have it written down. You know what I mean? I have my whole life is almost I have
That's
it.
very cool.
And you can't imagine the amount of work we did, and it's not believable, because it's just and to this day, that, and even not just the gigs, but the study, and the rehearsal, and all that is just never stopping.
Right.
And it dates back through then, and all the way through the 90s it was like that. Through the 90s for me it was all guitar study, and then in the 2000s I started finding a voice as a writer. I started being able to say things that I never thought I could. And I never thought of myself, you think of Springsteen, you think of Dylan, those guys, the things they wrote and the stories they told and how they did it. I never thought I could even approach anything like that. But I started touching on edges of it in the early 2000s. and I started having more belief in myself. And as I started doing that, then I started thinking I need to sing better. And then I started working on the singing. So all through like I say, the 90s was all about playing guitar. Then the early 2000s was about elevating the songwriting a little bit and elevating the singing a little bit. And then after 2010, I really started studying the writing and the singing. And
so
that's
you
where I
kind
am
of took yourself to school. I mean, you kind of like when in the last 25 years to 25 years ish.
Totally.
You've taken yourself to school
constantly.
Interesting.
And I'm still there. That's who I am today. I study constantly.
Do you consider yourself a storyteller?
I do now.
Yeah.
I do now. But I didn't then. And I didn't consider myself a guitar player. I didn't consider myself a singer. You know what I mean? But I do now.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? I used to beat other musicians up to get out of them what I wanted. And I kept being disappointed. And then I just started saying, you know what? All the energy that I put and all the thought that I put into these people to try and maximize what they have to offer, I just started doing it to myself because I just stopped being interested in other people because I would always be disappointed in their level of commitment. And so I started beating myself up, and I'm beating myself up now, on a daily basis. That's where I'm at. I'm 70 years old next year, and I'm constantly studying and constantly trying to make something of myself. That's how I see it. I'm trying to turn myself into something.
The hunger and desire to get better is no different now than you had like in 72.
None. Maybe even more so now because now I smell it. I sniff it through my snout. You know what I mean? Now I start. I always. I guess I always felt like there was greatness inside of me. And I always would glorify any greatness that I could touch within myself or in the situations I was working in.
Right.
But I want it so bad.
Yeah.
I want it so desperately. I want so desperately to be a voice. I want so desperately to have things to say of significance.
You don't think you've done that already?
I don't look back at that. We're talking about yesteryear, but I don't think of in yesteryear. I think about tomorrow.
So you're definitely more of a forward thinker. You don't reminisce a lot.
Never.
So we forced you to do it today, which is great.
We did.
This is great.
And we talked about things.
Excellent then.
And we got things said that I've thought, but I don't never dwell on them, because because that means it's over.
You think? You think? I mean,
to me,
reminiscing.
I'm so I want so desperately to touch the world. I want I look at it like this: people my age need new heroes. People my age need real music. Guys my age, a lot of the great music makers of my generation made their great music when they were young. There's not many guys my age that are at the top of their game.
Good point. Why do you think that is?
Commitment, follow through, and I think this. It's extremely difficult to put all the produce or all the merchandise onto one train and ship it. And it's like the Beatles broke up before the 70s. They were probably together 4 or 5 years before they found their greatness. They tapped that greatness for 4 or 5 years. And they're done. And then Paul McCartney records, I couldn't even listen to them.
Yeah, I understood.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, Zeppelin was kind of like that too. 79, Zeppelin done.
The Stones, who I love and respect totally, haven't made a great record in a really long time. They make records and they're cool and they're still Stones, but they're the vital, the top of your game shit ain't there, and it ain't been there in a really long time.
You could argue it probably ended like in the late 70s, maybe mid 70s with them. For me, as a Stones fan, I listened to it all. Maybe in the 80s, early 80s.
You give them the 80s, Kiss did what they did. They're still doing what they did, And I never thought it was great, but there was a certain energy and aliveness to it, and something that there was a fire about what it was.
Which you can get because you're wired that way. So musically might not have been your thing, but their energy and they're a band that drove forever too. I mean, Gene and Paul work as hard today. I'm pretty confident that they did back in the 70s. They have all the money in the world, but I think that drive to do it every damn day and keep their eye on the prize is kind of there.
That's the life. That's what you don't work so that you don't have to work. You work so that you can work more.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how I'm wired. That's
so
how,
the beauty's in the work.
The glory is in the rehearsal hall. The glory's in the studio. The glory's riding to the gig in the truck with your boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
The glory's getting to the studio. First thing you get to the studio, you get the whole gang there, and you fire up the first joint of the day. What are we gonna do today? We're gonna take the song, we're gonna pull its pants down. We're gonna see what it's got in its shorts, and we're gonna build it into something. When I first worked with Brett Kane Band, they come to me, why should we work with you? I says, here's what's up, guys. I says, I didn't know them. They were young and I was older. And I says, here's what we're gonna do today. I says, I'm going to take you in the studio and I'm going to put you through some changes. I'm going to teach you a piece of music. And you're going to go out and you're going to play that piece of music at your gig this week. And I says, if when you play this song, I said, if people don't stop and turn around and stare at the stage, and if they don't come up to you on the break and say, hey, what was that one song you played? I says, if that don't happen, I says, don't ever come back here again.
Wow.
I says, you don't need to know me. I says, but if I teach you this song and you do it and you play it the way I'm telling you to play it, if that does happen, how can you go anywhere else? And they said, that sounds fair. I says, get out in the room. And I taught him a piece of music. And next week they called me. They said, dude, exactly what you said was going to happen happened. I said, I'll see you next Monday. And that was that. Because that's how it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
The work speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. You either win or you don't. And if you don't win, why didn't you win?
It's on you.
It's on you. You have, the greatest thing about this business is you got to look at yourself. Mm-hmm. You got to self-evaluate. And that's what I'm never afraid to do that. And that's what I'm still doing that to this day. And I'm never afraid to say, I fucked up. Mm-hmm. I made a bad decision there. That wasn't the right record. That wasn't the right song.
Artists have a hard time doing that.
And that's why music, and that's why what we were just talking about a minute ago when I said that these fantastic periods of greatness, no one makes great music the whole way through. Mm-hmm. Do they? I mean, who is there that does?
Yeah, careers have that ebb and flow. Sometimes they have it's an ebb and it flows forever down.
You get you get some fruit.
Yeah.
And then you get squat.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know why that is. I think it's the humanity factor of it all, mm-hmm. and also the blending together of people. Mm-hmm. And, like the early Bon Jovi records were great records. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Magic, had the right producer. Right. Richie was, working at the top of his game. Johnny knew how to work with him. They used Desmond Child.
Yeah.
All those different things, those all factored in, and they had a great run of magic for a minute, you know?
Right.
And that's the best you can hope for. But me, I'm always trying to, I feel like I've been a part of a couple greatness times in my life. I feel like the Diamonds had a couple years of greatness. I feel like the Tigers had a couple years of greatness. I feel like I've done some things since then, and that for a lot of people would be enough.
But you think your best work's still out there. You're pursuing it.
No question.
You're pursuing it daily.
When I get home from here, I'll go right to work.
That's a philosophy, and that's personal philosophy, which I really admire. And anyone that has a craft or a vision, a business,
self-motivation.
Absolutely right.
That's
absolutely
what I have.
Right. Yeah. And again, I think, you said you're almost 70 years old. You've basically beaten the American way. And what I mean by that is how often talk about, you go to work 9 to 5. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's a reality for most people. And what are they doing? They're waiting for their vacations. They're waiting for the weekend. They're living for some day in time where they do nothing. And now they're waiting for retirement to do nothing. So it's always,
I ain't that guy.
Always been a shitty way to live as far as I was always concerned, but I see a lot of people doing that. You do not do that. You have bucked that philosophy.
Even dreamed of, never even thought of it that way. To me, it's all about...
And don't you think it's a better way to live?
I don't know what's better. I just know what I understand, you know. I don't... This is just the way I turned out. I was always this way. I was always self-motivated. I always, you know, I was always a weird kid, you know. When I was a little boy, I knew what I wanted to do with my life when I was like 12 and 13. So when I was in junior high and high school, I thought the other kids were just shallow.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the rich kids, you know, and they're going to college, but what for? They didn't even know what. They were just, what are you doing? I'm going to college. They never said, I'm going to be you know, all my energy's focused on this or all my energy's focused on that. Well, I'll go to college. You know, to me, it was like, well, I already knew what I was going to do with my whole life, and no one took me seriously. You know, people didn't realize that this little boy had found his thing in life, and that path was just, you know, set. And I didn't even realize it. You know, I just knew that that's how I spent my days. From the time I was 12 to 13. I just started studying constantly.
Okay.
When I was a senior in high school, they had offered a class for the first time. It's called Music Theory and Harmony. And I wasn't smart enough to get into class.
Okay.
My grades weren't good enough. It was just specialized class. And I told my mother, I said, Mom, I want to get this class. I said, I teach music theory and harmony. This is... My mother went up to the school, and she's, you know, we're a little Italian lady, and the principal was like this big 6'4" guy. His name was Dr. Good, and he didn't like me. And she said to him, she says, my son would like to get in that class, and you say his grades aren't good enough. He says, well, you know, it's only A students that can be in there. And she said to him, she says, look, she says, how many kids in my son's grade do you think are going to have a career in music? And he said, none. And she says, well, you're wrong. She says, my son already is a musician, and he already works every week, and he's making money.
Right.
He already is a musician, and you're not letting him in the class that he needs to. How many guys are going to be carpenters? They're all allowed to go to shop. Do they have to have an A to get into shop? She says, let my son into this class. And he did. And
God bless her.
Right. My mom loved me. She was phenomenal. And I learned so much in that class. And the teacher didn't like me. His name was Mr. Eugene Pupilli.
Pupilli.
That was his last name, another Italian. But he didn't like me because he was stone cold classical, you know, and he knew I was like a rock and roll guy.
Yeah.
But I learned how chords are built, how scales are built, and how notes relate to one another, and how notes resolve.
At a young age, you learned that.
I was learning it already, but when he taught me that this is how classical guys think, and this is the science behind this bullshit that I'm feeling and hearing, now it was verified. Even when I went to music school, I already knew what they taught because I studied so hard in high school. You know, when I went to college, all the kids at college were just guys who were trying to get out of going to Vietnam. It was all rich kids.
Okay, that's my next question. Talk about Berkeley for a second. So there you saw, interesting. So that was your impression based on the time that was a way to escape being drafted.
Rich kids. It was all rich kids that didn't give a fuck about music.
Huh, that's interesting.
And I was there studying my ass off.
Did you go into Berkeley as a guitar player or as an arranger?
I went in studying arranging.
Arrangements.
That's the classes I took was for arrangement.
Okay.
And that's what I was, because that's what I heard. I played guitar, and I had to have an instrument, so it was guitar.
Okay.
But I never even thought of myself as ever would be a guitar player.
Wow.
Or a singer, or even a songwriter. I've thought of myself as an arranger. I thought that's...
I had an 80s, a rather famous 80s instrumental guitar player, Tony McAlpine, was on the show earlier in the year, and he said kind of the same thing. People view me as a guitar player, but the reality is I want you to look at my whole body of work. Each song is a composition, it's an arrangement, and what the drummer is doing with the bass player is that's kind of how my vision. So he valued he prided himself on his composing and his arrangements as much as it was the guitar. I hear that from you too.
No question. More so. You know, for me, because that's what I had when I was young. That's what I had to offer. That's how I got in.
Okay.
You know, I started working at the studio. I was the guy that gave the shit most about getting everything recorded and making sure the drums and the bass matched and making sure the instruments, you know, were playing the right parts, and I had the ability to sit there hour after hour of the tediousness of it all. I was in my wheelhouse when everybody else was fighting to get out of there. Mm-hmm. I was, give me more.
So the nuances were like probably insane with you. Every little nuance of every little song was studied and restudied and recalculated.
No question. And still. And still to this day, you know, I have that kid I told you about, Bryce Foster, that's now engineering for me. He was in that Brett Kane band that I mentioned before.
Right.
And now he's down in Nashville working as a drummer and an engineer. Mm-hmm. And he said everywhere he goes, people say to him, "Where'd you learn all this shit?" He says, "I work with this old Dago up in Pittsburgh." He says, "Beat the shit out of me." He said, "If I didn't do it," you know, when he cuts drum tracks and people, everybody says to him, "How'd you learn how to play drums that way? How'd you know what to leave out?" He says, I had a guy beat the hell out of me. He says, I fought with him for 20 years.
Wow.
And he would never ever give in. You know, I kept trying to change the rules and make my own rules, and he would always say, "No, you're wrong. This is what you need to do, and this is how you need to hear, and this is why." And he says, and finally, he says, he broke me down, and I started embracing his philosophies.
Okay.
And now he's down in Nashville, and he's starting to flourish.
How about that?
Because, you know, I have these young guys, musicians come in, you know, and they want to, I'm going to Nashville. And I would say to them, "Dude,
pumping gas down there or what?" I mean, that's what happens to a lot of them.
You'll learn more sitting with me than you're going to learn down there.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, you know, down there, they'll take your money and record you, but they ain't going to talk to you and teach you how to think. To become an artist and a music guy, it's how you have to learn how to think. And that's what I teach, you know, how to.
What is color and texture and what you're describing to me? If I can use adjectives in the way I think, if I'm hearing it right, you look at music or a composition and looking at all the interacting parts. Are you seeing like colors and textures and is that kind of a good description of how you arrange?
Here's how you say it. All the colors of the rainbow.
Okay.
They're all there. But how do you make them shine through each other?
Okay.
And we had mentioned earlier space.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Space gives you the chance to have color. Because if you don't, all you get brown and gray.
Got it.
Do you know what I mean? And that's and what I teach is the spaces in between lets the colors shine through.
Okay.
And that's how you create arrangements that are huge and big and human. And cause goosebumps and let the lyrics and the sound of the voice, the texture of a voice, shine through. You know, you listen to a record like "Try Little Tenderness" by Otis Redding, one of the perfect recordings, probably cut live. You know, and but the way everybody played into each other and just the simplicity of it all. You can listen to that record 100 times. And each time you hear a little bit something else. And it's just, you know, a handful of guys playing a certain song. But that's a lesson in how to build music and how to be respectful, you know, to the song and to the other instruments. You know, and that's what I teach. And that's what I think music today, you know, you hear all these records by young people that have a piano on it and it goes, dun, dun. And it's somebody programming these simple childlike chords on a piano, and it's just a program, you know. And a lot of times there'll be a good singer over top of it. You know, a kid with I shouldn't say a good singer, but a good voice.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have a good singer.
Right.
And that's what, you know, how these kids are making pop music today, and it's just so unhuman. And I've been hear some things that, you know, well, it is cool and it'll move you, but I go, man. What if you really made that? What if you really made a real record of that song with that voice and a real production and a real piano player and a real team?
Real organic.
Yeah. And but it's too expensive and too difficult to get people to work together to do that.
Got it. Well, that's not what's selling today. They can sell the masses crap and you know, to go back to roots and break it all back down again in that beautiful way is an expense to them, right? In today's music business?
Well, I mean, I think the people that are better at music business are getting the juice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's harder and harder to find real music people.
Got it.
So here we sit, you know.
I always associate you with a Telecaster or a Telecaster style guitar in regards to the make. Is that pretty accurate?
No question.
And what? Let's talk a little tech for a second here. I know you mentioned there's very little, there's no effects in your food chain, your musical food chain, but you obviously migrated to the Strat or to the Tele. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, I like the way that guitar feels, and I always liked an original Telecaster, you know, the standard Telecaster.
Yep.
And then I found the music store that I was hanging at said to me one day, I was playing Strats and Teles.
Okay.
And the guy at the music store said to me, he says, look, I got this guitar on the wall here. He says, I need to get it the hell out of here. He says, it's been on a wall for a year and it hasn't sold and it makes me look bad. He says, I'm gonna put it on your account and you're gonna take it. He says, you don't have to give me a penny today. He says, but just pay it off. I think it was like $1,800 for it.
Okay.
And I says, $1,800? I says,
Lot
I
of
buy
money.
all my guitars from junkies because my house is on the way to Braddock, which is where they buy their junk. You know, and for real.
I get it.
$150. They all knew. Telecaster, Strat, I'd buy it. Whatever you got, I'll buy it for $150.
Okay.
All the junky musicians, because I was living in Swissville. And the guy said, it's Swissville music.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
And so I says, all right. And it was an Anderson Tele.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
And I didn't even play it for a while when I brought it home. I says, what the hell? He says, he talked me into buying this goddamn thing. I don't need this. And I was making demos at home, you know. And I started plugging it in for the demos. And I says, I had never played a guitar so in tune in my life. Mm-hmm. And then before long, I never played a guitar that was so clear in my life.
Articulation. Yeah.
You know, and all those things. And then finally I says, I'm going to take us out on a gig. And I started playing it live. And instantly I went, Jesus Christ, this thing is better than any guitar I've ever played. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I have not played another guitar.
Wow, that's it, huh?
It's an Anderson Tele with 3 pickups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is phenomenal. And it's real light. Mm-hmm. Which is great now that I'm old and I play for 3 and 4 hours at a clip.
Sure. Now, is it an ash body? Do you know? It's maple neck. Is it an ash body? Or is it an alder?
It's a rosewood fingerboard.
Oh, it's rosewood. Is the back of the neck maple though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's real light.
Like an alder body, maybe?
I think it's like a put together body.
Okay.
It's not like a solid piece of wood.
Okay.
And it's so fantastic. It rings so true, and just the sound of it. You know, like I say, I don't use no pedals.
Yeah.
Don't even use don't even use no reverb or nothing.
Yeah.
I just play.
Yeah. Well, the Tele fits you because to me, listening to all these Tele aficionados going back, you know, well longer than you've been on this earth. The catchphrase was, "You need to extract the tone out of a Tele," and the way you play and your persona, you're definitely extracting the tone out of that guitar.
Well, there's
no question.
My main guitar in the Tigers, my Tiger guitar was a Frankenstein Tele.
Okay.
It was a Warmoth body, a Mighty Mite neck.
Wow.
And I used some different configurations of pickups as the years.
You put it together. You basically bought the parts, put it together. Huh. I would not have believed that. Wow.
Yeah, and then we painted them all. A friend of mine, he actually still lives above my recording studio, painted them all. And when we started the Tigers, and he was the guy that came up with the name the Tigers, and he says, yeah, man, like, he's a really cool guy. He's actually a painter, you know, and he does paintings.
Yeah.
And we were all young back then, and he says, yeah, man, he says, I see it like, you know, the new band, he says, like, you know, like a sports team name, you know, like Pittsburgh. He says, you know, like the Tigers. And he says, and they says, like the East Side Tigers, because we always talk, we're on the East Side,
right?
The Manly side of town. And then he'd say, and he says, then we could paint the guitars, you know, tiger stripes, and like a sports team, and then maybe everybody wear the same clothes. He wasn't even in the band, but he was a real good friend of the bass players.
Yeah.
And he and I since had become friends, and now to this day he lives above my studio.
Wow.
But that was how we got that name. We wanted to be like a sports team.
Okay.
And more like a team, you know, and MTV was just happening, but we didn't factor that into it.
Okay.
You know, we didn't even think about that. We just thought, you know, yeah, that way we'll know what everybody's going to wear.
Right.
Because they'll wear the uniform.
Right. Right.
I'll wear something different.
No, I get it. Yeah,
but they'll all wear. They're my Tigers. Norman Nardini and his. You know, and that's the way that happened.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Amps. What was your go-to amp? And has that changed over the course of your career?
And the Tigers, I had no idea about amps. You know, and a couple times I tried plugging in them noise pedals and shit like that. And you know, I hadn't really found my voice as a guitar player at that time.
Okay. Was it? Would you playing Fender Twins back then?
I hit them. I had Orange amp. I had I had a Sun guitar amp. You know, it was like 40-watt thing that I just turned all the way up. I had a Soldano for a while.
What'd you think of those? That's a different kind of tone. That's a Marshall. That's a Marshall on steroids.
I had Marshalls.
Yeah.
I used Marshalls.
Okay.
In fact, in my studio today, I still have a fantastic. That album, Notorious.
Yeah.
Most of that album was cut through a 50-watt Marshall from the 1970s.
Oh yeah, like a JCM, like what?
No, none of that shit. 50-watt Marshall.
Oh, a JTM. Yeah.
None of them letters. 50-watt Marshall.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an early one then.
Yes, 70.
You better
72.
hold on to that amp.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what I used for the whole album.
Okay.
You know, so that's what I was using then, and then like I said, I used this Soldano. And now, in the '90s, the middle of the '90s, my Soldano broke down. So I went up to the music store, Swiss Film Music, and I says, "You got to fix this amp for me. I'm out of trouble. I need." He says, "Look," he says, another story. He goes like, he says, "Look," he says, "I can lend you an amp." He says, "But I got this PV amp here." He says, "I'll sell it to you for $320.
Really?
He says, "You can have it. It's four tens."
Yeah. Tube, right?
Yeah. And like 4 tens, and that was it. Like 35 watts or something. 40 watts.
Closed back or open? Do you know? Remember?
Open.
Open back. Okay.
Yeah, I remember because it's out in the truck right now.
Okay.
And I says to him, $320. I think that's what it was. He says, "You can buy it for $320. Why don't you buy it, and then you'll have it as a spare while we're fixing the other one." And I says, "All right, put it on my account." You know what I mean?
Don't walk into a Cadillac dealer, buddy.
Well, I don't. I've never owned a car. I'm so old that my first car was a panel truck.
Oh my gosh.
Because I never had a need for a car.
Got it.
But anyway, that PV, I started using it, and I still do today.
Yeah.
I have another one just like it.
Oh, they make great stuff.
A couple months later, he said, after I started using it, I says, I'm getting rid of that Soldano. I'm just going to play through that PV. And he says, "Hey, I got another one in." I said, "I'll take it." So I have 2 of them. They're sitting in my truck right now.
Got it.
And that's what I use.
That's
and
it.
lately, on the new album I'm cutting, I use them both at the same time to get a bigger, fatter, meaner sound, you know.
Okay.
And that's what I use. I turn them both up pretty much all the way. And
in your studio, when you record, is this still pretty much you trying to stay completely analog, or is there a digital blend in there? I mean,
no, we cut digital.
Okay.
We cut to a Logic program, which I don't even know how to turn it on.
Yeah.
I own the studio, but I never turn it on.
Understood.
I have an engineer comes in from Nashville.
Well, would you not agree now digital stuff is, in 2019, is a million times better than when the digital stuff first came out? I thought it was all compressed and it didn't sound well.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I mean,
yeah. It has
digital
so much.
Today is unbelievable.
It has so much to offer. It's kind of like... it makes things so easy when you have someone that understands it, which I don't, and I don't want to.
Right.
You know, the world don't need another rotten engineer. And so, you know what I mean?
Man knows his limitations.
Once again, I ain't no businessman. I ain't no engineer.
Right on.
And I'll tell you straight up, and I don't want no piece of that. I want to work with an engineer. I want to work with the manager.
All right.
So, you know, that's where I'm at. But yeah, this guy I'm working with out of Nashville is the guy I trained. And we used the Logic program, and now he's, you know, he has his own studio in Nashville now. And in fact, he's got someone down there this week cutting 3 Norman songs.
Oh yeah.
Pennsylvania Rain, Hard on the Line, and one other one.
Good for you.
Young girl, 20-year-old girl.
All right. So what's on the future for you, my friend, besides the re-release of the Diamond Reo material?
Well, there might be. I'm thinking there's 2 albums there with the Diamonds.
Okay.
A live record.
Okay.
and a studio record.
Okay.
And the studio record they're both totally unique. And,
Okay.
And extremely proud of that work. You know, it's like I was so young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't know. I didn't have any place of comparison. You know what I mean? I just didn't know. But now when I listen and I think, I just go, wow, we really were magic. You know, we were crazy.
Yeah.
But we really had something. And it also was reinforced when I talked to these Europeans. You know, they always say, you know, that Dirty Diamonds record was so influential, you know, better than the Aerosmith stuff of that era. And then the other Europeans say that Rough Cuts record is like, you know, like the Stones only on steroids.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And these Euros are totally into, like in the blues music.
Oh, it's
You know
huge
what I'm
over.
saying?
You're absolutely right. They have a different ear than we have here. They seem to appreciate our music better than we do. To some
Not
degree.
seem, they do.
Yeah. Well, they appreciate our good music better than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And like Billy, he just got back. Price.
I saw that. Yeah.
He just got back from Europe, and he just
Netherlands. He was all over the place. I
Yeah,
think.
and he was just talking about, you know, how, and I you know, when I toured Europe, I did Germany with the Blues Brothers in the 90s.
Right.
And their respect.
That's when you had that hit about
Smoke two joints.
Yeah. I did my own work.
and all the guys from the Blues Brothers would come over to my bus to smoke dope. And they would always fight with each other.
Oh, yeah?
They hated each other. And I would say to them, I should say, they'd come over one at a time. They knock on the bus, you know, because they were good guys, and I got to be great friends with their manager.
Right.
And they would let us park our bus. We didn't have no money for hotels, so we just slept in the bus.
Yeah.
But they would allow us to park the bus at the hotel where they were staying. And then when they would go out for lunch or to go shopping, they would come to the bus and hand us their room key. Like Cropper and Dunn, and they would say, hey, you know, my room's up. You need to go take a shower.
Right on.
See you tonight.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, really, really good guys.
I bet.
And we would, you know, end up smoking in the bus, and I would say, you motherfuckers can't be fighting with each other in our bus. We don't fight. You know, we get along.
You smoked dope not to fight, right? I mean, was that the idea? The chill?
Well, that was part of it. You know, and when we were young, you know, it was always when you're doing these thankless gigs.
Yeah.
You know, you're working, you're constantly, you know, and you're always under scrutiny, and you're always hungry, you're always tired. And one way, and then you got women showing up at gigs, looking their best, throwing themselves around at guys, and
all the distractions.
Dope,
Uh-huh.
powder, and all that bullshit coming around, and you know, people wanting to put stuff up your nose and shit, and all that. Guys,
You didn't succumb to any of that shit, though.
No, I was a pot smoker.
Yeah.
Still am.
Yeah.
And I did. You know, when I was in my 20s, I farted around with that shit. But I was by the time I was 27, 28, I don't even want to taste that shit. You know. But
it screwed up creativity for you, or just drive, or just why did you stay away from that shit? Is it what you were seeing around you?
Yeah, and also I just it wasn't me.
Got it.
It wasn't me.
Got it.
You know, but the reefer, it kept guys mellow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I say, you can jump in my truck, you smoke out of my bag.
Got it.
That was, you know, the musicians would always know. Norman, you can smoke out of his bag.
Yeah.
That's why we always did it.
Got it.
You know, and that way guys wouldn't want to fight with each other. And, you know, young guys, women, applause, adulation, start hating each
That's
other.
a drug. That's a drug, right?
The most powerful drug of all is women. And so an anecdote for that was, you know, smoke a little pot, you know, you learn how to go, whatever. And that's how I would think I would keep my bands together longer and get more work out of them.
Got it.
You know, like, you know, you want to do a 7-hour rehearsal. You know, I used to say to people, you know, when I was in the Tigers, I knew I was successful because at rehearsals, I had the band there, and I'd even have a joint roller. I throw them a couple bucks to roll joints for the rehearsal. I said, that's success. You know what I mean? But that's the simple things of, to me, I needed to do that to keep that way we felt like that. My guys felt pampered, and I felt like, hey, they're here. We have someone who ran out for food.
Yeah.
Somebody, we have coffee, and then someone, rolling joints.
Right.
Boom. You want a joint? It was always there.
Yeah.
You need a joint? Go over. There's a guy rolling them. Hey, roll me 2. And that's how we operated. Well, I have. I'm working on a new Norman record right now.
Okay.
I have
That's good to know.
The 2 Diamonds records, and I just recently found about 40 songs.
Okay.
That I've written in the past 7 or 8 years that are extremely high level.
All right.
That have just, it's hard at this stage of my life and this stage of my career to get guys to rehearse, and you know what I mean. It's hard to get all that organized now.
I bet.
So I've got hundreds of songs, but I have 40 or 50 high level pieces of music that need cut.
Okay.
And I'm still writing constantly.
Right. So
I need. For the next 10 years, I'm going to be cutting and doing things constantly, and I'm hoping that one day I can find some type of management team that will help me administer this. And my selling point is the music, of course,
sure.
The entertainment, and the other thing that I think I have for sale is my story. Mm-hmm. I think my story is very unique. Mm-hmm. And I think you could even use the word inspirational, for someone who has been beaten down so long and had so many disappointments that never, ever considered going like, oh, okay, I give. Yeah, I'm done. I've had enough.
Well, you never use it as a crutch.
And I've never went like, no, dude, I've had enough. You know what? You want to kick my ass? Give me more. Like Rocky in those movies, you know what I mean? The more they'd punch him, no, he's getting mad. And that's what. And was the Rocky movies not inspirational?
Absolutely, especially the first one.
Enough for how many? How many they float out there? 5 or 6?
6, something like that. Yeah.
And that's that story. Is always, people need that. And when I said before,
so there needs to be a book then.
Well, that's another thing. A lot of people have mentioned I'd like to do a book or a couple of them. I think the first book I'll do will just be song lyrics.
Interesting. Okay.
That's something I'm considering now.
Okay.
And, but it's I don't have time to stop and write things, and that's why I say the song lyrics things is something that would probably be my first book. But the stories, the craziness of it all, I'll probably write. But I don't. I might want to write it with someone.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think that's smart. Yeah. Have another writer with you.
I can't do it. I'm not good at a lot of things.
Well, you're probably not good. Yeah, creativity wise, you definitely are in control. So you might have trouble working with a writer. I think it's healthy though to get someone to bounce ideas back off.
And someone that has these skills that can hold my hand.
Got it.
And show me the tricks of doing those kinds of things, because I write little stories, but making a great book,
got it.
I'd either have to really focus on that, and I can't see myself having time to do it because I'm so involved with this music.
It's a big project.
But so I'm just locked into this thing that I'm doing, like future-wise. I say the couple Diamonds records. There's a new Norman record in the works now that's almost done.
Right.
And
so release in the next 3 to 6 months, maybe.
I'd say next summer.
Okay, cool.
And it's more blues oriented, and I think the name of it's going to be Black Sheep. It's going to be the name of that record.
Okay.
And but then there's like another album of new music that isn't blues oriented.
Right.
And the new record is blues oriented. So there's those two things, and then there's, like I say, 40 or so songs that need cut.
Got it.
And that's 5 years.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
And how many songs am I going to write in between?
Absolutely.
Which I don't want to write them.
And you're still playing. And you're still playing live, right?
Constantly.
Yeah.
And this song I'm going to play for you today, I started writing while I was sleeping.
Let's hear it, man. And when you were sleeping?
I was sleeping when I wrote this hunk.
Wow. All right. And
it's called Young.
Young.
Was something I should have forgotten about. You remember what it was like to be young, Eric?
I do. Yes, I do. I do, my friend. I do.
I don't remember it real well. But when we talk like this, when we're talking like this today,
It comes back, right?
you got me thinking about it.
It
being
comes
young.
back, right? Absolutely.
But check out this hunk.
All right.
Hope I don't screw it up. Because it's new. It's only like a month old. In fact, I started playing it, it was 6 days old.
Really? Okay.
And I played it, and I don't even know if I got the whole way through it. But as soon as I started playing it, a couple people come up to me and said, dude, what is that?
Got it.
Oh, look at that, honey. Boy, that's a nice looking guitar, right?
Yeah. We did some good work in our day.
Oh, is this one of yours?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So-
That's Paul Stanley of Kiss. That was a Kiss model. Yeah.
So handsome.
Thank you. Thank you.
We was headed for the city by the Golden Gate when we stuck on our thumbs back in 68. Got arrested in Ohio on the interstate. Never made the scene at Ashbury and Heights. Wound up in Beantown trying to get an education to modulate the status of my situation. Didn't graduate. Youthful frustration put me on the road in search of sanctification. I was really good at being young. About guys like me, songs are sung. I can't believe the circles that are running, the pitches that I swung at, them bells can't be unrung. Man, I was really good at being young. Joined up with the band out in Cincinnati, had a bowl of chili with the pimp daddy. Learned the ins and outs of rolling up the fatty from a girl in West Virginia on the backseat of a caddy. Got a gig in Jersey, so I took that turnpike ride. Met a couple Johns, one called himself Southside. Toe up the fast lane, that can't be denied. Got some sand between my toes, walking oceanside. I was really good at being young. About guys like me, songs are sung. I can't believe the circles that are running, the pitches that I swung at, them bells can't be unrung. I was really good at being young. You couldn't tell me nothing I wasn't gonna learn for myself. Banged around Manhattan trying to find a record deal. Got high up on some mushrooms with a cabbie at the wheel. Smoked a joint in Mo Levy's office that had to be concealed, 'cause I'd have took a beating if that had been revealed. Everywhere I went, my eyes was open wide for every laugh I had. The one that shit I cried, lost more than I won, but I never lost my pride. Now I wouldn't trade a minute of that crazy ride. I was really good at being young. About guys like me, songs are sung. I can't believe the circles that are running, the pitches that I swung at, them bells can't be unrung. I was really good, broke every rule I could. I was really good at being young. At being young.
All right.
How you doing?
There's Norman.
That's a new one. That's the new me. That's when I started around while I was sleeping.
Wow.
Those first couple lines, we were headed for the city by the Golden Gate when I stuck up my thumb back in 68. I was sleeping, and I woke up and I was saying that, and I says, I better get up and get this.
Yeah,
so I went down and wrote it, in the middle of the night.
Wow.
I remember I wrote a song years ago called "Poor Little Rich Kid." Well, I just made a mess.
You know, you're good.
You get a Kleenex?
Yeah, you're good. Good.
But
No worries.
you really opened up my eyes when you took me for that ride. You didn't have to be so unkind. Now I'm gonna leave you behind. Then you wake up and you're all alone and realize what you did, 'cause you're a poor little rich kid. That's another one I wrote while I was sleeping. Merry Christmas, everybody. May all your hopes and dreams come true. And while you're at it, have a Happy New Year too. Then it goes, I hope Santa comes down your chimney with a bag of Christmas cheer and stops to have a glass of eggnog to toast a brand new year. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's the time of year to lose your blues. Snowflakes falling and the good times are calling you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, buddy.
But that's one that...
that was extremely apropos for the time of year we're at, pal.
That's what I'm... Oh, I didn't bring my capo. You got a capo?
I don't. I apologize. I wish I did.
Oh, I was gonna play this other song that I wrote. It's called Happy New Year.
Okay.
It goes like this. It's a finger picking thing, but I can't do it without it. Oh, I forget it. Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to me, and all the nuts on my family tree. Happy New Year to strangers I ain't met me. The blessings that come be as good as they get. Everyone far and near. Have a happy new year, new year. Have a happy new year. May you remember your loved ones gone to a better place. Not with a heart full of sadness, but with a smile on your face. Happy New Year. That's another one. Yeah, they're it's like a never-ending supply.
This was amazing, my friend. This is amazing, my friend.
So we had a little bit of fun, right?
We had a ton of
fun.
fun.
Talk a little shit. How you doing?
Yeah, that's right. Talk a little. I would expect nothing from less from you. That
Well, I'm
wouldn't.
glad
that
you
wouldn't
are.
be authentic, right? That wouldn't be authentic.
Well, Billy Price said I'm the most authentic. Is that what he said?
I'm a most authentic Pittsburgh musician. Yeah, yeah. Artist, entertainer.
I'll take that as a wonderful compliment.
It was. I'm sure it was meant to be. It's spoken.
We're the
very
same
well.
age, Billy and I.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're both wearing it well. Both vibrant as ever.
We both have a crazy passion to gig,
To perform.
to get up, to strap it on,
Yeah, right on.
start strutting around. How you like me? You know what I mean? That's the thing. There's nothing more fun than strapping it on and getting up there and have their eyes when you can get the eyes to come to you. You know,
got it.
People say, "Why do you talk so crazy?" You know, I talk crazy, you know, and they say, "Hey, my name's Norman Roosevelt, Aloysius, Nicodemus, Amadeus, Valentino, Giovanni, Romeo, Bruno, Raphael, Luciano, Luigi, Nardini." And I'm the wop with the bop, the guinea with the skinny, the Guido and the Speedo, the last true man, the heart and soul, the undisputed, undefeated, uncrowned king of Pittsburgh rock and roll. You bring out the rest and let me put them to the test. We'll see what they got in their shorts. When you got to act like that. I do.
That's the Norman I know.
And that's how I get their attention.
Right.
Because the radio never told them I exist.
Right. Right.
And that's...
So you got to grab them by the jugular as soon as they walk in that bar.
I have to be better at it than everybody else.
Got it.
I have to be better beyond compare. I mean, and not just a little bit better.
Yeah,
I
right
have
on.
to be fantastic.
Right
I
on.
have to be unforgettable.
Got it.
From the bullshit to the songs to the guitar playing to the band, the way the band performs together.
Yeah.
All that has to be an extremely high level for me to exist. So, and that's what I do. And that is a story. And I hope that someday I can get that story told.
Yeah. I think it should be a book. I do. You
think?
told a good amount of it tonight, though, or today, for sure.
We did, but I left a lot of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know
yeah,
what I'm
there's only
saying.
so much being covered. And that's why I want to ask you. So, will you come back and see me again?
I most certainly will.
Yeah,
Most certainly.
whether it's early spring, whatever you got going on, when the albums are coming, whatever. But I would love to have you back on.
I'll give you 2 weeks to stop talking to me like that. You hear me now?
I do.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank
really
you, my friend.
appreciate
This is
it.
awesome. And thank you all.
And
Norm
thank you-
Nardini. And they can reach you, normnardini.com.
Well, the website hasn't been real active lately. I got to
Okay.
kick that back into shape. We're going to work on
Yeah,
that.
your
But
Facebook page.
you can always find me on Facebook. Look at this face.
How can you miss that face?
Only a mother could love this face. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook. And like I say, I'm trying to learn how to escalate my business and things like that, so I'm available to more people. And I would love to have my own TV show.
There you go. I think you're a one-man act, pal. You can handle it. I think you could handle it. Maybe this will be the catalyst.
That is a huge endorsement right there for an old bag of meat like me. Don't make me come over there, Eric. I'll kiss you full on your face.
Oh, Christ. Thank you, my friend.
Bless you, my
Means
brother.
good.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Bada boom!
And we're
All
gonna do
right, you monkeys.
We're going to do it again.
No question. These two hunks of meat, a couple of gentlemen, will get together, talk a little.
Yeah. And what'd you say on social media yesterday? You were going to come down and do a whole lot of talking.
Talking loud and saying nothing. How you doing? That's how I do. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it.
God bless you all. Norm Nardini.
Touch me.
Dude, honestly, man. Oh, my God, dude. Thank you so much. This was unbelievable.
I appreciate
You're going to love this show, man. I'm telling you.
Fingertips above the water, you watch me drown. You could have saved me, but you let me down. Yeah.